The scent of blood wasn't supposed to smell like home. But as Ethan crouched in the darkened alley behind the Chicago meatpacking plant, breathing in the metallic tang mixing with rain and rot, his wolf purred with satisfaction. This was familiar. This was safe. This was the life he'd built after running from everything that mattered. Except the blood wasn't from the plant. It was trailing from the woman stumbling toward him, human, mid-20s, her designer dress torn and muddy, one shoe missing. Her eyes were wild with terror, and when she saw him, she didn't scream. She just collapsed at his feet like her strings had been cut. "Please," she gasped. "They're coming. They're going to kill me." Ethan's every instinct screamed at him to walk away. He'd spent 5 years keeping his head down, avoiding pack politics, living as a lone wolf in a city that didn't ask questions. Getting involved with a bleeding human being hunted by unknown enemies was the fastest way to destroy the fragile peace he'd carved out. But then he caught her scent underneath the blood and fear. Lavender. Honey. And something else, something that made his wolf slam against his ribcage with recognition so violent it stole his breath. Mate. No. Absolutely not. This couldn't be happening. "Who's hunting you?" he demanded, even as his hands were already moving, checking her for injuries. 3 deep cuts across her ribs, defensive wounds on her arms, and a nasty gash on her temple that was bleeding too much. "Vampires," she whispered. "But not regular ones. They're organized. Led by someone who wants me dead because I saw something I shouldn't have. Vampires." Of course it was vampires. Ethan's wolf snarled. Vampires and werewolves had a truce in Chicago, fragile, constantly tested, but holding. If vampires were hunting humans in werewolf territory, it meant someone was breaking the accord. And that meant war was coming whether Ethan wanted it or not. "How many?" he asked. 6. Maybe more. "They killed my father. They killed," her voice broke. "Everyone at the gala. Everyone except me. I ran, and they chased, and I don't know why I'm still alive except they're playing with me. Letting me think I can escape before they." She didn't finish because shadows detached from the darkness at the alley's entrance. 6 figures, moving with the unnatural grace of the undead. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light, and when the leader smiled, his fangs gleamed white and sharp. "There you are, little rabbit," the vampire said, his voice smooth as silk and twice as deadly. "You've led us on quite the chase. But playtime is over." Ethan stood slowly, positioning himself between the woman and the vampires. His wolf was already surging forward, demanding to protect what was his. "She's under my protection now," Ethan said, his voice dropping to a growl. "Leave. Before this becomes a problem." The lead vampire laughed. "A lone wolf? In our territory? Bold. But stupid." His red eyes narrowed. "Do you even know who you're protecting, dog? What she witnessed? Don't care. You should. That little human saw Victor Ashford murder Senator Morrison. Saw him drain the good senator dry in front of 100 guests before slaughtering everyone who could testify." The vampire's smile widened. "Victor runs Chicago's vampire covenant. And he doesn't leave loose ends." Ethan's blood ran cold. Victor Ashford was one of the most powerful vampires in North America, ancient, ruthless, and politically connected enough to make problems disappear. If this woman had witnessed him committing murder, she was dead. No question. No escape. Unless Ethan did something monumentally stupid. "The accord," he said flatly. "Vampires don't hunt in werewolf territory without permission from the Pack Alpha. You're breaking treaty law. The accord died tonight when Victor decided open war was preferable to maintaining the charade." The vampire's expression turned predatory. "So step aside, wolf. Or die with her. Your choice." Ethan looked down at the woman trembling behind him. Her eyes, dark brown, beautiful despite the terror, met his with desperate hope. And through the mate bond he hadn't asked for, didn't want, couldn't afford, he felt her fear like it was his own. Run, his logical mind screamed. She's not your problem. You left pack life behind. You don't do this anymore. But his wolf had other ideas. And so, apparently, did his mouth. Her name, Ethan said. What's her name? The woman's voice was barely a whisper. Sophia. My name is Sophia. Sophia. His mate's name was Sophia, and she was about to die unless he threw away 5 years of carefully maintained anonymity and declared himself her protector against forces that could crush him without effort. Ethan's claws extended. His eyes shifted to amber. And when he spoke, his wolf's growl resonated through every word. Sophia is mine. And if you want her, you go through me. The vampires attacked. Hey there, amazing viewers. Welcome to a brand new story that's about to take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't believe. And listen, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now's the time. This story has everything: forbidden mates, vampire-werewolf war, a lone wolf forced to choose between safety and love, and twists that'll leave you absolutely breathless. You do not want to miss what happens next, so subscribe and let's dive into this journey together. Now, back to Ethan and Sophia. The first vampire came at him fast, too fast for human eyes to track. But Ethan wasn't human. He shifted mid-dodge, his body exploding into wolf form with practiced ease. Fur, fangs, and 400 pounds of predator met the vampire mid-lunge, his jaws closing around the creature's throat. Vampire blood tasted like ash and death, but Ethan didn't let go until he felt vertebrae crack between his teeth. The vampire dissolved into dust, and Ethan barely had time to register the kill before 2 more were on him. Claws raked across his shoulder, burning, because of course they'd coated their weapons in silver. A fist connected with his ribs, cracking bone. But pain was old friend, and Ethan had learned to fight through it years ago. He twisted, threw one vampire into a wall hard enough to crater the brick, then lunged at the second. His claws found soft tissue beneath the ribs, and he tore upward, shredding everything vital. Another cloud of ash. 3 down. 3 to go. But the remaining vampires weren't engaging anymore. They'd spread out, circling, and Ethan realized with cold dread what they were doing. Distraction. He whirled back towards Sophia just as the lead vampire appeared behind her, one hand fisted in her hair, the other pressing a silver blade to her throat. Shift back, the vampire commanded. Now. Or I open her carotid and let you watch her bleed out. Ethan's wolf howled in fury, but he forced himself to shift back to human form. Naked, bleeding from a dozen wounds, outmatched and outmaneuvered. Let her go, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. This doesn't have to end badly for everyone. It already has. The vampire's blade pressed harder, drawing a thin line of blood. Sophia whimpered, and the sound drove ice picks through Ethan's chest. Victor wants her dead. I'm just following orders. But you could walk away. Live to see tomorrow. All you have to do is turn around and... The vampire's head exploded. Not metaphorically. Actually exploded in a spray of ash and bone fragments that made Ethan flinch back instinctively. Sophia screamed and stumbled forward, and Ethan caught her without thinking, pulling her against his chest as he searched for the source of whatever the hell had just happened. A woman stepped into the alley. Tall, athletic build, with short auburn hair and eyes that glowed faintly gold even in human form. She was holding what looked like a modified shotgun, smoke still curling from the barrel. Blessed silver buckshot, she said casually, like she was discussing the weather. Turns vampires into confetti. Highly effective, deeply illegal, absolutely worth it. Her glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. You must be the idiot who decided to pick a fight with Victor Ashford's cleanup crew. Who the hell are you? Ava Kane. Chicago Pack Enforcer. And you, Lone Wolf, are in a spectacular amount of trouble. She lowered the shotgun slightly. Though I'll admit, declaring a random human woman as yours to protect was either incredibly brave or cosmically stupid. I'm leaning towards stupid. She's my mate, Ethan said before he could stop himself. The words hung in the air like a detonation. Ava's eyebrows shot up. Oh, hell. Oh, that's just perfect. She laughed, sharp and bitter. Do you have any idea what you've just done? You declared a blood claim in front of witnesses. That makes her pack business now. Which means Alpha Cole is going to want to have a very long, very unpleasant conversation with you about why you've been living in his city for 5 years without presenting yourself. Ethan's stomach dropped. I can explain. Save it for the Alpha. Ava pulled out her phone, typed something quickly. I've got cleanup en route for the bodies and a medical team for your injuries. The woman, Sophia, needs to come with us too. If she witnessed Victor committing murder, she's a strategic asset. The pack will protect her. No. Ethan's arms tightened around Sophia instinctively. She's not pack business. She's mine. You just said she was your mate. That makes her pack business by definition. Ava's expression softened slightly. Look, I get it. Mate bonds are intense, especially new ones. But right now, vampires are breaking the accord. You're a lone wolf who's been hiding from Alpha Cole, and this woman is the only witness to a murder that could start a war. We need to get her somewhere safe, and then we need to figure out what the hell we're going to do about Victor. Sophia stirred in Ethan's arms. I'm right here. Maybe someone could explain what's happening in a way that makes sense. Because I'm pretty sure I just watched werewolves and vampires fight in a Chicago alley, and I might be having a psychotic break. Not psychotic, Ethan said quietly. Just introduced to the supernatural world in the worst possible way. I'm sorry. Are you really my? She couldn't seem to finish the sentence. Mate. Yes. The word felt strange on his tongue. It's complicated. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it, Ava muttered. But we can do explanations later. Right now, we move. Victor's cleanup crew might be dead, but he'll send more. And next time, they'll come with numbers we can't handle alone. She was right. Ethan knew she was right. But every instinct was screaming at him not to let Sophia out of his sight, not to trust anyone else with her safety. The mate bond, barely hours old, was already rewriting his priorities. Where? He asked. Pack house. North side. It's warded, defended, and the one place in Chicago vampires won't dare attack openly. Ava started walking toward the alley entrance. Come on. We've got maybe 10 minutes before this area is swarming with cops and more vampires. Ethan scooped Sophia into his arms. She was shivering, going into shock, and followed. His wounds were healing already, werewolf metabolism knitting flesh and bone back together, but he could feel the silver poisoning slowing the process. Ethan, Sophia whispered against his chest. What's happening? What are you? Werewolf. Shifter. Whatever term you want to use. He glanced down at her, and their eyes met. Even through the fear and confusion, he felt the pull, the bond trying to solidify, to cement itself into something permanent and unbreakable. And you're my mate. Which means I'm going to protect you, no matter what it costs. Why? It was a good question. They'd known each other for maybe 15 minutes. He didn't know her favorite color, her dreams, what made her laugh. All he knew was that she smelled like home and his wolf had claimed her the moment their eyes met. Because that's what mates do, he said simply. Ava led them to a black SUV parked 3 blocks away. She drove like she was being chased, which, given the circumstances, they probably were, navigating Chicago's late-night streets with practiced efficiency. So, she said after several minutes of tense silence. Want to tell me why a wolf with your skill set has been living as a lone wolf for 5 years? Because that fighting style? That's pack-trained. Military grade. You're not some random shifter who couldn't hack pack life. Ethan stared out the window. It's personal. Everything's personal when it comes to pack. But Alpha Cole is going to ask, and he won't accept, it's personal, as an answer. Then I'll deal with that when it comes. Sophia shifted in his arms. You keep saying Alpha. Like there's someone in charge? There's always someone in charge, Ava said. Werewolf packs are hierarchical. Alpha at the top, Beta second, then enforcers like me, then regular pack members. It's how we maintain order, settle disputes, survive in a world where we're outnumbered by humans and hunted by other supernatural factions. And this Alpha Cole, he's going to protect me from vampires? If Ethan's claim is legitimate, yes. Mates are sacred in pack culture. Attacking or killing a claimed mate is one of the few offenses that carries an automatic death sentence. Ava glanced in the rearview mirror. But there's going to be a price. The pack doesn't offer protection for free, especially not against someone like Victor Ashford. What kind of price? Ethan asked, though he already knew. Already felt the walls closing in. The kind where you stop being a lone wolf and rejoin pack life. Permanently. Ava's eyes met his in the mirror. You declared her yours. That means you're responsible for her. And responsibility in pack structure means belonging to the pack again. No more hiding. No more running from whatever you left behind. Ethan's jaw clenched. 5 years. He'd stayed away for 5 years, built a life where he didn't have to answer to an alpha, didn't have to follow orders, didn't have to watch people he cared about die because of pack politics. And now, because of one woman and a bond he hadn't chosen, it was all coming crashing down. You don't have to do this, Sophia said softly. If rejoining your pack is that terrible, you can leave me. I'll figure something out. No. The word came out harder than he intended. I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever. But you don't even know me. Doesn't matter. Ethan looked down at her, and even in the dim light of the SUV, he could see the question in her eyes. The confusion and fear and something else, a pull she probably didn't understand yet but could feel nonetheless. The bond chose us. I don't know why, don't know what we did to deserve it, but it's there. And I'm not walking away from it. From you. Ava snorted. Well, isn't that romantic? Hope you still feel that way when Alpha Cole makes you explain why you've been avoiding the pack for half a decade. They pulled up to a mansion on Chicago's north side, old money architecture, surrounded by high walls and gates that probably had more security than the average military installation. Guards were visible at the entrance, all of them radiating the controlled violence of trained enforcers. The pack house. Ethan's wolf stirred uneasily. This place represented everything he'd run from: hierarchy, control, belonging to something larger than himself. And now he was walking right back into it, dragging his newly discovered mate along. Last chance to run, Ava said, though her tone suggested she knew he wouldn't. Once you step through those gates, you're making a statement. You're asking for the Alpha's protection, which means accepting his authority. Ethan looked at Sophia, still cradled in his arms, her dark eyes searching his face for reassurance he wasn't sure he could provide. And he thought about the vampires. About Victor Ashford and whatever political game he was playing. About the murders, the broken accord, the war that was probably already starting. Sophia didn't stand a chance alone. Hell, Ethan didn't stand a chance alone. Not against organized vampire forces. But together, with pack backing. Maybe they could survive this. Maybe they could even win. Let's go, Ethan said. The gates swung open, and they drove into territory Ethan had sworn he'd never enter again. And somewhere in the shadows of Chicago, Victor Ashford smiled, watching his chess pieces move exactly where he wanted them. The game was just beginning. And Ethan had no idea he was already 3 moves behind. The pack house smelled like pine, leather, and dominance. Ethan carried Sophia through hallways lined with portraits of former alphas, stern faces watching their procession with painted judgment. Pack members emerged from doorways, their eyes tracking him with curiosity and suspicion. Word had already spread. The lone wolf had returned, carrying a human woman who reeked of vampire blood and fear. They were led to a sitting room that screamed old money and older power. Mahogany furniture, Persian rugs, a fireplace large enough to stand in. And sitting in a leather chair that might as well have been a throne was Alpha Cole Thorne. Ethan had seen him before, 5 years ago, though they'd never spoken directly. Cole was in his early 40s, built like a linebacker, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that shifted between gray and amber depending on how close his wolf was to the surface. He radiated authority the way the sun radiated heat, constant, undeniable, dangerous to challenge. "Ethan Reeves," Cole said, his voice a deep rumble that made Ethan's wolf want to lower its head in submission. "I was beginning to think you'd never present yourself. 5 years is a long time to live in my city without acknowledging pack authority." "Alpha." Ethan set Sophia down gently on a couch but kept himself positioned between her and Cole. "I apologize for the breach of protocol. I had my reasons." "I'm sure you did. Though I'm more interested in your reasons for declaring a human woman as your mate and starting a war with Victor Ashford all in the same night." Cole's gaze shifted to Sophia. "Miss Sophia Chen," she said, her voice steadier than Ethan expected. "And I didn't ask to be anyone's mate or start any wars. I was at a charity gala, and I saw Senator Morrison murdered by Victor Ashford. Then vampires killed everyone else there and chased me through half of Chicago until I ran into Ethan." "Senator Morrison." Cole's expression darkened. "Progressive politician, human rights advocate, vocal opponent of supernatural secrecy laws. His death will make headlines." "It already is," Ava said, holding up her phone. "News broke 15 minutes ago. Official story is a gas leak explosion at the gala venue. No survivors except for a few staff members who weren't in the building." Her eyes found Sophia. "Which means Victor has the political machinery to cover up mass murder and make it stick. He's been building toward this for years," Cole said grimly. "Consolidating power, eliminating rivals, positioning himself to control Chicago's entire supernatural underground. Morrison's death removes one of the few human politicians who might have stopped him." He leaned forward slightly. "Miss Chen, what exactly did you see?" Sophia's hand found Ethan's, gripping it like a lifeline. "Everything. Victor announced that the accord, I didn't know what that meant then, was finished. He said supernatural beings were done hiding, done pretending to be equals with humans. Then he grabbed Senator Morrison, bit him, and drained him. In front of everyone. When people tried to run, his vampires blocked the exits and started killing." "How did you escape?" "The catering staff entrance. I was near it when everything started, and I just ran. Kept running until I couldn't anymore." Her voice cracked. "My father was there. He was one of the first they killed." Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. Through the mate bond, he could feel her grief like a physical ache in his chest. It was disorienting, feeling someone else's emotions so intensely, but his wolf was practically purring with the need to comfort her. "I'm sorry for your loss," Cole said, and he sounded like he meant it. "Victor has taken much from many people. But Miss Chen, you need to understand something. By witnessing what you did, you became a liability Victor cannot allow to exist. He will hunt you until you're dead, using every resource at his disposal. The only reason you're alive right now is because Ethan claimed you as his mate." "I don't understand what that means," Sophia said. "The mate thing. Ethan said it, Ava mentioned it, but no one's actually explained what it means." Cole's eyes shifted to Ethan. "You didn't tell her?" "Didn't have time. We were kind of busy not dying." "Then allow me." Cole stood, moving to a side table where he poured 3 glasses of what looked like expensive whiskey. He offered one to Sophia, one to Ethan, and kept one for himself. In werewolf culture, a mate bond is sacred. It's a connection between two souls recognized by the wolf. When a shifter identifies their mate, it's instantaneous, a scent, a look, something indefinable that tells them, this person is mine. The bond can form between two shifters, or between a shifter and a human. Once declared publicly, as Ethan did tonight, it becomes pack law. Attacking or killing a claimed mate is one of our highest crimes. Sophia took a sip of whiskey, coughed, then took another. "So Ethan's wolf decided I'm his," what? Soulmate? In essence, yes. And I don't get a say in this? You always have a choice, Cole said carefully. The bond can be rejected by either party. But rejection is painful for both people involved. And it doesn't change the fact that Victor wants you dead. Rejecting Ethan's claim wouldn't remove pack protection. We don't abandon humans in need, but it would complicate matters significantly. Sophia looked at Ethan, and he saw the war in her eyes. Fear, confusion, attraction she didn't want to acknowledge, and underneath it all, grief for her father and everyone else who'd died tonight. I don't know you, she said quietly. I know. This is insane. Completely. But you're saying if I reject this bond, it'll hurt you? Ethan wanted to lie, to tell her he'd be fine, that she should choose whatever made her comfortable. But the bond was already strong enough that lying felt physically impossible. Yes, he admitted. It'll hurt like hell. Feel like something vital being ripped out. But Sophia, if you're not ready for this, if you need time or space or... Time is something she doesn't have, a new voice interrupted. Everyone turned as a man entered the room. He was shorter than Cole, maybe 5'9", with perfectly styled black hair and a suit that probably cost more than Ethan's yearly rent. But it was his eyes that gave him away, cold, calculating, and completely devoid of humanity. Vampire. Ethan was in front of Sophia instantly, claws extended. Easy, Wolf, the vampire said, raising his hands in a placating gesture. I'm not here to fight. I'm here under flag of truce. Carl, Cole said, his voice neutral but his posture tense. This is unexpected. I'm sure it is. Carl Ashford, and yes, Ethan recognized him now, Victor's younger brother and second in command, moved to the fireplace with casual confidence. I came to deliver a message from my brother. And an offer. We're not interested in anything Victor has to say, Cole said flatly. Not even if it prevents a war. Carl's smile didn't reach his eyes. My brother is prepared to overlook Miss Chen's survival. He'll even fabricate evidence that she died in the gas leak explosion. All he asks in return is that the pack doesn't interfere in vampire business going forward. The accord is dissolved, yes, but that doesn't mean we need to be enemies. Victor is simply restructuring Chicago's supernatural hierarchy. Once that's complete, a new agreement can be reached. Restructuring, Ava said with disgust. Is that what we're calling genocide now? Dramatic. But expected from you, Ava. Carl's attention shifted to her, and something dark flickered across his face. Still holding grudges, I see. You murdered my sister. I was following orders. Nothing personal. Ava's claws were out, and she was moving before anyone could stop her. But Cole's hand shot out, catching her wrist with supernatural speed. Stand down, the Alpha commanded, and the dominance in his voice was enough to make even Ethan's wolf whimper. This is Pack House. We don't break truce protocols under my roof. Ava's eyes were blazing amber, but she stepped back. He killed Lily. Drained her dry and left her body in an alley like trash. I know. And he'll answer for it when the time comes. Cole released her wrist. But not tonight. Carl straightened his tie, unbothered by the death threat. As touching as this is, I came for an answer. Does the pack accept Victor's offer? Miss Chen's survival overlooked in exchange for non-interference? No, Ethan said before Cole could respond. She's my mate. She's under pack protection. Victor can go to hell. Ethan, Cole said warningly. With respect, Alpha, this isn't negotiable. They murdered her father. Massacred innocent people. And now they want us to just pretend it didn't happen? Ethan's wolf was snarling, the mate bond amplifying his protective instincts to the point of irrationality. I won't agree to that. Cole's eyes narrowed. You don't speak for the pack, Reeves. You're not even officially a member yet. Then make me one. Right now. Because I'm not letting Sophia become a bargaining chip. The room went silent. Pack members who'd gathered in the hallway to watch the confrontation held their breath. Even Carl looked surprised by Ethan's audacity. Cole studied him for a long moment. You understand what you're asking? Joining the pack means accepting my authority. Following pack law. Putting pack interests above your own. You've avoided that for 5 years. Why the sudden change? Because she matters more than my pride. Ethan met the Alpha's gaze steadily. I left pack life because I got my best friend killed following orders I disagreed with. Swore I'd never put myself in that position again. But Sophia didn't ask for any of this. She's innocent, and she's mine, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe. Even if that means swearing loyalty to a pack again. Something shifted in Cole's expression, recognition, maybe, or respect. Your best friend. That would be Lucas Kane, wouldn't it? Ava's brother. Ethan's stomach dropped. He looked at Ava, saw her face go pale with understanding. You're that Ethan, she said softly. The one who was with Lucas when he died. The one who disappeared afterward. I didn't disappear. I ran. Ethan's voice was rough. Because I couldn't face your family. Couldn't face the fact that I'd gotten him killed because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. What happened? Cole asked. Rouge werewolves. A pack that had gone feral, killing humans. Our Alpha, my old Alpha, sent 6 of us to eliminate them. But there were more than we'd been told. Twice as many. We fought, but they overwhelmed us. Lucas stayed behind to give the rest of us time to retreat. By the time we got reinforcements, he was already dead. Ethan closed his eyes against the memory. I was supposed to be his partner. Supposed to watch his back. I failed. Ava was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Lily never blamed you. Neither did our parents. They said you were following orders, that Lucas chose to sacrifice himself. That doesn't make it easier to live with. No, Ava agreed. It doesn't. She wiped her eyes roughly. But Ethan, running didn't bring him back. And it didn't ease your guilt. All it did was make you alone. I know. Cole cleared his throat. Carl. Tell your brother the pack rejects his offer. Miss Chen is under our protection, and we will not overlook mass murder for the sake of political convenience. If Victor wants war, he'll get one. Carl's expression hardened. You're making a mistake, Alpha. My brother controls half the supernatural factions in Chicago. He has resources, allies, and the tactical advantage. This pack will be destroyed. Then we'll be destroyed fighting for what's right instead of living as cowards. Cole's eyes blazed amber. Now get out of my house before I forget about truce protocols. For a moment, Carl looked like he might argue. Then he smiled, cold and sharp. Your choice. But don't say you weren't warned. He headed for the door, paused, looked back at Sophia. Enjoy your protection while it lasts, Miss Chen. My brother always gets what he wants. Always. Then he was gone, leaving tension thick enough to choke on. Sophia stood on shaking legs. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to start a war. If I'd known. You have nothing to apologize for, Cole said firmly. Victor started this war the moment he decided the Accord no longer served his interests. You're just the catalyst that brought it to the surface. He turned to Ethan. You really want to rejoin pack life? After 5 years of freedom? Yes. Why? And don't say just because of her. The mate bond is strong, but it doesn't rewrite your entire personality overnight. Ethan was quiet for a moment, examining his own motivations. The bond was part of it, yes, the overwhelming need to protect Sophia, to keep her safe from threats she didn't understand. But it was more than that. Because I've been running for 5 years, he said finally. Running from guilt, from responsibility, from connection. And I'm tired. Tired of being alone, tired of pretending I don't need pack, tired of living half a life because I'm afraid of getting hurt again. He looked at Sophia, then at Ava, then at Cole. I can't bring Lucas back. Can't change the past. But I can choose to be part of something bigger than myself again. Can choose to fight for people who matter. Sophia matters. And despite everything, Pac matters too. Cole nodded slowly. Then here's what's going to happen. You'll undergo formal initiation tomorrow night. Swear loyalty to this Pac, accept my authority as Alpha, and commit to Pac law. In return, you'll be given full member status, housing, resources, and most importantly, the Pac's protection for you and your mate. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. Cole's attention shifted to Sophia. As for you, Miss Chen, you have a decision to make. Accept the mate bond with Ethan, or reject it. Either way, you'll have the Pac's protection until Victor is dealt with. But I need to know what you choose. Sophia looked at Ethan with those dark, expressive eyes. And through the bond, already so much stronger than it should be after only hours, he felt her fear, her grief, her confusion. But underneath it all, he felt something else. Recognition. The same certainty his wolf had felt the moment he'd seen her. I don't believe in love at first sight, she said quietly. I don't believe in soulmates or destiny or any of that romantic nonsense. I believe in choice, in building connections through time and shared experience. Ethan's heart sank. She was going to reject the bond. He could hear it in her voice. But, Sophia continued, I also believe in second chances. In trying even when the odds are impossible. In taking risks when the alternative is hiding. She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could smell lavender and honey beneath the fear. So here's my choice, Ethan Reeves. I'm not accepting the mate bond. Not yet. Not until I actually know you, until this feels like something I chose instead of something that was chosen for me. The words hurt, but Ethan nodded. I understand. But, she said again, I'm not rejecting it either. I'm asking for time. For us to figure out what this is, what we could be, without supernatural pressure forcing the issue. Can we do that? Can the bond wait while we actually get to know each other? Cole made a considering sound. Unconventional. But not unprecedented. The bond won't disappear just because you're not actively pursuing it. It'll keep pulling you together, keep making you aware of each other. But if you're both willing to take it slow, there's no law that says you have to complete the bond immediately. Then that's what I want, Sophia said. Time. Choice. And maybe, eventually, something real. Ethan felt the knot in his chest loosen slightly. Not rejection. Not acceptance. Something in between, something that felt more honest than either extreme. Okay, he said. We'll take it slow. Figure this out together. Sophia smiled for the first time since he'd met her. It was small, exhausted, but genuine. And it made the mate bond sing with approval. Well, Ava said, breaking the tension, this is all very touching. But we still have a vampire problem. Victor isn't going to wait politely while you two figure out your relationship. He'll strike, probably soon, and probably hard. Agreed, Cole said. Which is why we prepare for war. Ava, I want full security protocols activated. Double the guards, check all the wards, and reach out to our allies. We need to know who'll stand with us when Victor makes his move. On it. Ethan, you're with me tomorrow. We'll discuss your initiation and get you caught up on pack dynamics. For tonight, you and Sophia will be given rooms in the East Wing. Separate rooms, he added with a pointed look. Since you're taking things slow. Despite everything, Ethan found himself smiling. Understood, Alpha. As pack members began to disperse, moving to follow Cole's orders, Mara appeared with a medical kit. Let me check those silver wounds before they get infected. And Sophia, I'd like to examine you as well, make sure there's no serious damage. While Mara worked on both of them, cleaning and bandaging, Ethan found his thoughts drifting to what came next. War with Victor. Initiation into the pack. Building something real with Sophia despite the mate bond trying to rush them into permanence. It was overwhelming. Terrifying. The exact opposite of the quiet, anonymous life he'd been living. But as he watched Sophia wince while Mara cleaned the cut on her temple, as he felt her emotions through the bond like echoes of his own, Ethan realized something. He didn't want quiet anymore. He wanted purpose. Connection. The chance to be part of something that mattered. And maybe, just maybe, the chance to fall in love the old-fashioned way, slowly, messily, with someone who challenged him to be better than he'd been. "Hey," Sophia said, catching his gaze. "You okay? You're staring." "Just thinking." About? About how my life went from boring to insane in the span of one night." She laughed, soft and slightly bitter. "Join the club. Yesterday my biggest worry was whether my presentation at the gala would impress the donors. Today I found out vampires are real, werewolves exist, and apparently I have a supernatural soulmate who's willing to start a war to protect me. When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous." "It is ridiculous." Her expression sobered. "But Ethan? Thank you. For saving me. For claiming me even though it brought all your past back to the surface. You didn't have to do any of that." "Yes," he said quietly. "I did. Because the moment I caught your scent, the moment our eyes met, you stopped being a stranger and became the most important thing in my world. The bond might be new, might be something we need time to understand, but that feeling? That's real. And I'm not walking away from real." Sophia's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "My father used to say that real connections are built on honesty and shared struggle. That love worth having is love you have to fight for." She reached out, taking his hand again. "I think he'd like you. I wish I could have met him." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence while Mara finished her work, two strangers bound by fate and choice and the promise of something neither of them fully understood yet. But in the shadows of Chicago, Victor Ashford was making plans. Plans that would test the pack, the bond, and everything Ethan thought he knew about loyalty, love, and sacrifice. The war was coming. And when it arrived, everyone would have to choose what they valued more, safety or honor, survival or justice, self-preservation or love. Ethan had made his choice. Now he just had to hope it was the right one. Ethan didn't sleep. He lay in the guest room Cole had assigned him, comfortable bed, clean sheets, security he hadn't felt in years, and stared at the ceiling while his mind raced. Through the wall, he could feel Sophia's presence. Not physically, but through the bond. She was awake too, her emotions a tangle of grief and fear and exhaustion. Every instinct screamed at him to go to her, to comfort her, to solidify the bond that was pulling them together like gravity. But he'd promised to respect her boundaries. To give her time. So he lay there, feeling her pain and unable to ease it, until dawn broke over Chicago. The knock on his door came at 6 a.m. sharp. "Reeves." Ava's voice, muffled but authoritative. "Alpha wants you downstairs. Now." Ethan rolled out of bed, pulled on clothes someone had left for him, jeans, black t-shirt, boots, and opened the door. Ava looked like she hadn't slept either, her auburn hair messy and dark circles under her eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Everything." She started walking, and he fell into step beside her. 3 hours ago, Victor hit 4 different pack-affiliated businesses. Burned them to the ground. No casualties, thank God, but it's a message. He's showing us he can strike whenever he wants, wherever he wants. Ethan's jaw clenched. How many vampires? Security footage caught maybe 20. But they were organized, military precise. In and out in under 10 minutes at each location. Ava led him down the grand staircase to the main floor. "It gets worse. Senator Morrison's death is all over the news. Federal investigators are already en route to Chicago. And Victor's planted evidence suggesting werewolf involvement." "What?" "Fur. Claw marks on the bodies. One of his vampires even planted a partial wolf pelt at the scene." Ava's expression was grim. He's framing the pack for the massacre. By noon, every federal agency will be looking for werewolves in Chicago. They entered the same sitting room from last night, now filled with pack members. Cole stood at the center, studying a map of Chicago spread across a table. Around him clustered his inner circle, beta, enforcers, strategists. Ethan. Cole didn't look up from the map. Glad you could join us. We have a situation. Ava filled me in. Then you understand we're fighting a two-front war. Vampires attacking our infrastructure, and human authorities investigating us for crimes we didn't commit. Cole finally looked up, his gray eyes hard. I need to know right now, Reeves. Are you committed to this pack? Because if you're going to run again when things get difficult. I'm not running, Ethan interrupted. I told you last night. I'm in. Whatever that means. It means following orders even when you disagree with them. It means trusting that I have the pack's best interests in mind, even when the decisions seem harsh. Cole's gaze was penetrating. 5 years ago, you left because you couldn't handle that dynamic. What's changed? I have. Ethan moved closer to the table, studying the map. Red X's marked the attacked businesses. I left because I was young, arrogant, and thought I knew better than my alpha. Lucas died because I hesitated, second-guessed orders in the middle of combat. I blamed the alpha, blamed the pack, blamed everyone except myself. He met Cole's eyes. But I've had 5 years to think about it. 5 years alone. And I've realized that being part of something bigger than yourself means accepting you're not always going to agree with every decision. It means trusting the people around you to have your back, even when you're wrong. Pretty words. Let's see if your actions match them. Cole pointed to a location on the map, a warehouse district near the docks. We have intelligence that Victor is using this area as a staging ground. Weapons, blood supplies, possibly hostages. I'm sending a team to investigate. You're on it. When? Tonight. After your initiation. Cole's expression softened slightly. Speaking of which, that's happening at sunset. Full pack ceremony. You'll swear loyalty, accept pack law, and submit to the Alpha's authority. It's not comfortable. But it's necessary. I understand. Do you? A new voice, and Ethan turned to see a man in his 30s approaching. Tall, lean, with dark hair and eyes that were cold even in human form. He radiated the controlled aggression of someone used to violence. Because submission doesn't come naturally to dominance like us. And you, Reeves, you reek of alpha potential. Submitting to Cole might break something inside you. Ignore Nathan, Ava said. He's just bitter because he wanted beta position and Cole gave it to someone else. I'm not bitter. I'm realistic. Nathan's gaze never left Ethan. You've been a lone wolf for 5 years. That builds independence, makes you used to making your own decisions. Coming back into pack hierarchy is going to chafe. And when it does, when Cole gives an order you hate, what then? It was a fair question. One Ethan had been asking himself all night. Then I follow the order, he said. Because that's what pack means. Trusting that the Alpha sees the bigger picture, even when I can't. Even if it gets someone killed. The words hit like a physical blow. Ethan's wolf snarled, and for a moment, he wanted nothing more than to wipe the smug expression off Nathan's face with violence. But that was exactly what Nathan wanted. A reaction. Proof that Ethan couldn't control himself. Even then, Ethan said quietly. Because running didn't bring Lucas back. It just meant I wasn't there to prevent the next death, or the one after that. At least in a pack, you're fighting for something. Dying for something. Alone, you're just, alone. Nathan studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. Welcome back to the cage, Reeves. Nathan. Cole's voice held a warning. Enough. We have real enemies to worry about without turning on each other. The tension broke as someone's phone buzzed urgently. Ava checked hers, and her face went pale. Cole. We have a problem. Another attack? Worse. Sophia's gone. Everything inside Ethan went cold. What? She's not in her room. Security says she left the pack house 20 minutes ago, alone, headed toward downtown. Ava's fingers flew across her phone. She's not answering calls or texts. Ethan was moving before anyone could stop him, but Cole's hand shot out, catching his arm with supernatural strength. Think, the Alpha commanded. Why would she leave? Where would she go? Through the bond, Ethan could feel her distress, determination, grief. And underneath it all, something that felt like guilt. Her father, he said suddenly. The gala was 3 nights ago. His body would be at the morgue. She's going to see him. Into territory we know Victor is monitoring, Cole said grimly. She's walking into a trap. Then I'm going after her. Not alone. Nathan, Ava, go with him. 3 is better than 1 if this turns into a fight. Cole released Ethan's arm. But Reeves, listen to me carefully. This is your first test. Sophia is your mate, and every instinct is screaming at you to protect her. But you're also about to be pack. Which means you follow Nathan's lead if he gives orders. Can you do that? Ethan wanted to argue. Wanted to say that Sophia's safety trumped pack hierarchy. But that was the old him talking, the lone wolf who answered to no one. Yes, he forced out. I can do that. Good. Then move. And bring her back alive. The Cook County morgue was a squat gray building that smelled like death and disinfectant. Ethan found Sophia in the viewing room, staring through glass at a body covered by a white sheet. Her father. Even from across the room, Ethan could see her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Sophia, he said softly. She didn't turn. I needed to see him. To say goodbye. I know it was stupid, leaving the pack house, but I couldn't just hide while my father's body was in some cold drawer, alone. I understand. Ethan moved closer but gave her space. But you're not safe here. Victor. I don't care about Victor. She finally looked at him, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. My father spent his whole life fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Exposing corruption, challenging power, making the world better. And Victor killed him like he was nothing. Like his life didn't matter. It mattered. He mattered. Then why am I the only one who survived? Why did everyone else at that gala die while I got to run away? Her voice broke. I should have stayed. Should have tried to help, or fought, or done something other than saving my own skin. You survived because you were smart and fast and lucky. There's no shame in that. Feels like shame. Sophia wiped her eyes roughly. Feels like I abandoned everyone who mattered. Ethan understood that feeling more than she knew. But before he could respond, Ava's voice came through his earpiece, pack issued, given to him before they'd left. Movement outside. Multiple vampires converging on the morgue. It's an ambush. Nathan's voice followed. Fall back to the vehicles. Now. Sophia, we need to go, Ethan said urgently. I'm not done. You're done. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the exit. Victor knew you'd come here. Knew you'd want to see your father. This whole thing is a trap. They burst into the hallway just as windows shattered. Vampires poured through, at least a dozen, moving with predatory speed and purpose. Nathan was there in an instant, shifted halfway to wolf form, his claws ripping through the first vampire that got close. Ava flanked him, her hell-forged blades singing through the air. But there were too many. Reeves! Nathan shouted. Get the girl out. We'll hold them. Every instinct screamed at Ethan to stay and fight. But Cole's words echoed in his head, follow Nathan's lead. He scooped Sophia into his arms and ran. Behind him, he heard the sounds of combat, snarls, screams, the wet crunch of bodies being destroyed. But he didn't look back. Couldn't look back. His job was to protect Sophia, and that meant getting her clear of the ambush. They burst out the back entrance just as a black sedan screeched to a stop in front of them. Carl Ashford stepped out, smiling that cold, calculating smile. Going somewhere? Ethan set Sophia down, positioning himself between her and the vampire. We're leaving. Don't try to stop us. Oh, I'm not going to stop you. Carl's smile widened. My brother wants to speak with Miss Chen. Privately. And he's willing to make it worth your while. Not interested. You should be. Victor is prepared to offer a deal, Sophia's testimony about the gala in exchange for the pack's freedom. She tells the federal investigators that werewolves were responsible for the massacre, and in return, Victor calls off his war. Your pack lives. Everyone wins. Except for Sophia, who'd be lying and painting a target on every werewolf in the country. A small price for peace, don't you think? No. Sophia's voice was steady despite her fear. I'm not lying about what happened. I saw Victor kill my father. I saw vampires murder innocent people. And I'm going to testify to exactly that, regardless of what it costs. Carl's expression hardened. Then you're sentencing your mate and his pack to death. Because Victor will not allow you to expose us. He'll destroy everyone you care about until you have no choice but to comply. He can try, Ethan growled. He will succeed. Carl pulled out a phone, showed them a video. These are feeds from 4 locations around Chicago. Pack members' homes. All rigged with explosives. One word from me, and they detonate. 23 werewolves dead in an instant. Ethan's blood turned to ice. You're bluffing. Am I? Call your alpha. Ask him if he's noticed anything unusual about the homes of his pack members in the past hour. Carl's smile was triumphant. Victor doesn't bluff, Wolf. He plans, he executes, and he wins. Always. Through the earpiece, Ethan heard Cole's voice, tense and furious. Ethan. Stand down. Do not engage. Carl isn't bluffing, we've confirmed explosives at multiple residences. If he triggers them, the pack would be decimated. Families destroyed. All because Ethan had declared Sophia his mate and dragged them into Victor's war. What do you want? He forced out. Simple. Sophia comes with me. Now. She speaks to Victor, hears his full proposal, and makes an informed decision about whether pack lives are worth more than her moral high ground. Carl extended his hand toward Sophia. No harm will come to her. You have my word. Your word means nothing, Ava said, appearing at Ethan's side. She was bloodied but intact, Nathan right behind her. You killed my sister and called it following orders. And I'd do it again. Carl's expression didn't change. This isn't personal, Enforcer. It's business. And right now, business dictates that Miss Chen comes with me, or 23 werewolves die. Her choice. Sophia looked at Ethan, and through the bond he felt her terror. But underneath it, he felt something else, the same stubborn determination that had made her run from the gala instead of freezing, that had made her survive when everyone else died. If I go with you, she said carefully, you'll disarm the explosives? The moment you're in the car. And Ethan? The pack? They won't be harmed? Not by us. You have my word. Carl's smile returned. For whatever that's worth to you. Sophia started toward the sedan. No. Ethan grabbed her arm. You're not doing this. I have to. Her eyes met his, and they were filled with tears and resolve. I won't let innocent people die because of me. Won't let your pack pay for my choices. This is what Victor wants, to separate us, to make you vulnerable. I know. But it's also the only way to save lives right now. She touched his face gently. Ethan, I barely know you. We've been connected for less than 24 hours. But in that time, you've shown me more courage and honor than most people demonstrate in a lifetime. You declared me yours when you didn't have to. Stood up to your alpha for me. Came back to a pack you'd been avoiding for years because I needed protection. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Now it's my turn to protect you. To protect all of you. Sophia. Trust me. The same way you're asking me to trust the mate bond. She pulled away from his grip, walked to the sedan. I'll be fine. And when this is over, we'll have that time you promised. Time to figure out what we are to each other. How touching, Carl said. But we really must be going. Victor doesn't like to be kept waiting. Sophia climbed into the sedan, her eyes never leaving Ethan's. And through the bond, he felt her fear, her determination, and underneath it all, something that felt achingly like love. Then the car door closed, and Carl drove away, taking Ethan's mate directly into enemy territory. Explosives are disarming, Cole's voice came through the earpiece. He kept his word about that, at least. Nathan put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. We'll get her back. How? Ethan's voice was raw. Victor has her. And he's not going to let her go willingly. Then we don't ask, Ava said fiercely. We take. Tonight, during your initiation, we plan. Tomorrow, we execute. Victor thinks he's won because he has Sophia. But what he's really done is give us a target. A location. A reason to strike with everything we have. Ethan looked at the retreating sedan, already blocks away. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to chase it, to fight, to tear apart anyone who stood between him and his mate. But pack meant trusting others. Meant accepting that he couldn't do this alone. Okay, he said. We plan. We strategize. And then we bring her home. Whatever it takes, Nathan agreed. They returned to the pack house to find it in controlled chaos. Pack members were evacuating families from the rigged homes, bomb squads were being called, and Cole was coordinating everything with the calm authority of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Ethan. The Alpha's voice cut through the noise. With me. Now. They went to Cole's private office, smaller than the sitting room, lined with books and weapons in equal measure. The Alpha poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed one to Ethan. That was a test, Cole said without preamble. Not one I planned, but a test nonetheless. And you passed. I lost my mate to vampires. How is that passing? You followed Nathan's orders. You protected Sophia instead of fighting when your instincts screamed otherwise. And you trusted the pack to handle the situation instead of going lone wolf. Cole took a drink. That's what it means to be pack, Reeves. Making the hard choices, trusting your pack mates even when it hurts. She's with Victor. Who knows what he's doing to her right now? I know. And we're going to get her back. Cole's eyes were hard. But first, your initiation. Because if you're going into Victor's territory to rescue your mate, I need to know you're fully committed to this pack. That you won't break ranks when things get difficult. I won't. Prove it. Cole set down his glass. Initiation involves 3 things. First, you swear loyalty to the pack and accept my authority as Alpha. Second, you submit to pack hierarchy, which means experiencing what it's like when an Alpha asserts dominance. Third, you demonstrate your commitment by accepting pack bonds with every member. It's intense. And it'll leave you vulnerable for several hours afterward. But when it's done, you'll be pack. Truly, completely pack. Ethan's wolf bristled at the idea of submission. But he thought of Sophia, alone with vampires. Thought of Lucas, dead because Ethan had been too arrogant to trust his Alpha. Thought of 5 years spent isolated and miserable. I'm ready, he said. Then let's begin. The initiation ceremony happened in the pack house's underground chamber, a massive room carved from bedrock, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. Every pack member was there, forming a circle around the center where Ethan knelt. Cole stood before him, radiating alpha dominance so strong it made Ethan's wolf want to roll over and expose its throat. "Ethan Reeves," Cole said, his voice resonating through the chamber. "You come before this pack seeking membership. Do you understand what that means?" "Yes, Alpha." "Then speak your oath." Ethan had memorized the words during the afternoon. Now, kneeling on cold stone, he spoke them with complete sincerity. "I swear loyalty to the Chicago Pack. I accept Cole Thorne as my Alpha and submit to his authority in all Pack matters. I pledge to protect Pack members as I would protect myself, to honor Pack law above personal desire, and to stand with my Pack mates against all threats. From this day until my last, I am Pack. And do you accept the consequences of this oath? That breaking it means death or exile?" "I accept." "Then rise, Ethan Reeves. And show this pack that you understand what submission truly means." Ethan stood, and Cole's dominance slammed into him like a physical force. The Alpha's power was overwhelming, not cruel, but absolute. It demanded acknowledgement, demanded that Ethan's wolf recognize who was in charge. Every dominant instinct screamed at him to fight back, to challenge, to prove he was strong enough to lead. But Ethan had spent 5 years learning the hard way what pride cost. So instead of fighting, he tilted his head, exposing his throat in the ultimate gesture of wolf submission. Cole's hand closed around his throat, not squeezing, just holding. Establishing dominance without violence. "Do you accept my authority?" Cole asked quietly. "Yes, Alpha." "Will you follow my orders even when you disagree?" "Yes, Alpha." "Will you trust me to lead this pack with wisdom and strength?" "Yes, Alpha." Cole released his throat. "Then I accept you as pack. Welcome home, Ethan Reeves." The pack bonds hit him all at once, a rush of connection to every werewolf in the room. He could feel them, their emotions and loyalties and fears. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying. And somewhere in Chicago, through the mate bond that had nothing to do with Pack and everything to do with fate, he felt Sophia. Still alive. Still fighting. Still his. The initiation was complete. The Pack was whole. And now, finally, they could plan how to wage war against vampires who thought they'd already won. But Victor Ashford was about to learn a hard lesson: you don't take a wolf's mate and expect to survive the consequences. Victor Ashford's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of the Drake Hotel, overlooking Lake Michigan with views that cost more per month than most people earned in a year. Sophia sat in a leather chair, trying not to show fear while Carl poured wine she had no intention of drinking. The room was all dark wood and expensive art, designed to intimidate. And it was working. "Comfortable?" Victor asked, entering from an adjoining room. He looked different than he had at the gala, less dramatic, more businessman. Tailored suit, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, eyes that would seem kind if you didn't know what lay behind them. "I apologize for the crude methods of bringing you here. Carl can be overzealous. You threatened to kill innocent people," Sophia said, proud that her voice stayed steady. "That's not overzealous. That's terrorism." "Semantics." Victor settled into the chair across from her, crossing his legs casually. "But you're right. I am a terrorist by human legal definitions. Also a murderer, a manipulator, and about a dozen other things your father's reform bills tried to criminalize." His smile was sharp. "Your father was a good man, Miss Chen. Genuinely believed he could make the world better through legislation and moral authority. I respected that, even as I knew he had to die." Sophia's hands clenched. "Don't you dare talk about him like you knew him." "But I did know him. We had lunch 3 times over the past year. He was trying to convince me to support his supernatural rights bill, the one that would have forced beings like me into public registration and monitoring." Victor's eyes gleamed. He had no idea what I was, of course. Thought I was just a wealthy donor with political connections. The irony was delicious. "Why am I here?" "Because you're valuable. Not just as a witness to the Gala massacre, though that's certainly part of it. No, Miss Chen, you're valuable because you're bonded to a werewolf. And that werewolf is bonded to a pack I need to neutralize before I can consolidate power in Chicago. Victor leaned forward slightly. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to record a statement, video testimony, claiming that werewolves attacked the gala. That you saw them shift, watched them slaughter your father and the other guests in some kind of supernatural turf war. The federal investigators will eat it up. Public opinion will turn against werewolves. And the pack will be too busy defending themselves against human authorities to interfere with my plans. No. I'm not finished. In exchange for this testimony, I will not only spare the pack but actively protect them. I have considerable influence with law enforcement and political figures. I can make investigations disappear, evidence vanish. The pack will be safe from both vampire aggression and human persecution. All I ask is one little lie. Sophia studied him, trying to understand what kind of creature could murder dozens of people and then offer protection as if it was a gift. And if I refuse? Then I kill you, slowly and painfully, while forcing your mate to watch through a live video feed. Then I kill him. Then I systematically destroy every member of the Chicago pack until Cole has no choice but to surrender or watch his entire pack die. Victor's voice remained conversational, like he was discussing the weather. I've been planning this for 3 years, Miss Chen. I have contingencies for contingencies. The pack cannot win a direct war against me. The only question is how many of them die before Cole accepts reality. You're insane. I'm pragmatic. There's a difference. Victor stood, moved to the window. The supernatural world is changing. For millennia, we've hidden from humans, pretending to be myths while they multiplied and spread across the planet. But they're getting smarter, their technology more sophisticated. How long before they discover us on their own? How long before fear turns to persecution? So you murder a senator and frame werewolves? How does that help? It controls the narrative. When humans learn about the supernatural, and they will, soon, I want to be the one shaping their first impressions. Vampires as sophisticated, civilized beings who've been living peacefully among them. Werewolves as dangerous beasts who can't control their violent urges. He turned back to her. It's all about perception, Miss Chen. And right now, I'm controlling the perception. Sophia felt sick. My father died for your PR campaign. Your father died because he was a threat to my plans. Nothing personal. Victor checked his watch. You have until midnight to make your decision. Record the testimony, or watch everyone you've come to care about suffer. Carl will escort you to a room where you can consider your options. I don't need time. The answer is no. We'll see. Victor's smile was cold. People say no quite often when I first make an offer. But after a few hours contemplating the consequences, they usually reconsider. You will too. Carl appeared, gesturing for Sophia to follow. She stood on shaking legs, maintaining what dignity she could as she was led to a bedroom 3 doors down the hall. I really did like Lily, Carl said as he opened the door. Ava's sister. She was kind, funny, saw the best in everyone. Including me. Then why did you kill her? Because Victor ordered it. And I've learned that questioning Victor's orders leads to outcomes much worse than simply following them. He pushed her gently into the room. You'll learn the same lesson, Miss Chen. Everyone does eventually. The door locked behind her. Sophia stood in the luxurious prison, king bed, and soot bathroom, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and felt the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her. Lie and save the pack. Tell the truth and watch everyone die. Through the mate bond, growing stronger despite the distance, she could feel Ethan. His fury, his fear for her, his determination to find a way out of this. It should have been comforting. Instead, it just made everything harder. Because she was falling for him. Despite the impossible circumstances, despite knowing him for barely a day, she was falling for the werewolf who declared her his mate and appended his entire life to protect her. And now she had to choose whether to sacrifice him or her principles. Back at the pack house, Ethan was pacing like a caged animal. The initiation had left him raw and oversensitive to pack bonds. He could feel every pack member's emotions, their fear, their determination, their loyalty to Cole. It was overwhelming and grounding at the same time. But mostly, he could feel Sophia. Alone. Terrified. Facing choices he couldn't help her with. "You need to calm down," Ava said, watching him from the couch. "Wearing a hole in the floor won't bring her back faster. I can feel her fear. Every second of it." Ethan ran his hands through his hair. "This bond is torture. How do mated pairs survive this? By trusting each other. By remembering that your mate is strong enough to handle themselves until you can get to them." Ava stood, moved to intercept his pacing. "Sophia survived the Gala massacre. She survived being hunted through Chicago. She's not helpless, Ethan. Give her credit for that. I know she's strong. But she's alone in Victor's penthouse, surrounded by vampires, being pressured to do God knows what. Which is why we're planning a rescue." Cole entered, followed by Nathan, Mara, and a handful of enforcers. "Reconnaissance confirms Victor is keeping her on the 78th floor. 4 vampires on guard rotation, building security that's mostly human but potentially compromised. We go in at 3 a.m., skeleton crew, minimal witnesses." "That's 6 hours from now," Ethan said. "A lot can happen in 6 hours." "I know. But rushing in without a plan gets everyone killed." Cole spread a building schematic on the table. "We need to be smart about this. Drake Hotel has 300 guests on any given night. If we start a supernatural brawl in the middle of a luxury hotel, we expose the entire supernatural community. Victor would love that. Public panic plays right into his narrative." "So what's the plan?" Nathan asked. "Small team. 3 people, Ethan, Ava, and Mara. You go in disguised as hotel staff, locate Sophia, extract her quietly. Meanwhile, I create a distraction at Victor's club downtown. He won't be able to resist coming to defend his territory personally, which splits his forces." Cole's finger traced a route on the schematic. "Service elevator here, maintenance access to the penthouse level here. In and out in under 15 minutes. What about the vampires guarding her?" Ethan asked. "You handle them. Quietly if possible, violently if necessary." "But Ethan," Cole's gaze was hard. "This is a stealth mission. If you go in there and let your mate bond override tactical thinking, you'll get yourself and Sophia killed. Can you handle that?" The mate bond was screaming at him to rush to Sophia's side, damn the consequences. But Ethan had just sworn to trust his alpha, to follow orders even when every instinct rebelled. "Yes," he forced out. "I can handle it." "Good. Ava, your team leader. Ethan follows your orders. Mara, your medical support and magical backup. Any questions?" "Just one," Ava said. "If things go sideways, what's our extraction plan?" "You call for backup and hold position until reinforcements arrive." "But it won't go sideways. Because you're all professionals who know how to follow a plan." Cole's expression softened slightly. "I know what it's like, Ethan. Knowing your mate is in danger and not being able to get to them immediately. It's hell. But 6 hours of planning beats rushing in and getting her killed." Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. The next 6 hours were torture. He tried to rest, knowing he'd need his strength. But every time he closed his eyes, he felt Sophia's fear through the bond. Felt her isolation, her growing despair as Victor's deadline approached. At midnight, the bond flared with sharp determination. Sophia had made a choice. And whatever it was, it hurt her to make it. Ethan shot upright in bed, reaching through the bond, trying to understand what was happening. But the distance muted the connection, left him with impressions rather than clarity. Hold on, he thought desperately, hoping somehow she could feel him. Just hold on a few more hours. I'm coming. At 2 a.m., Ava knocked on his door. It's time. Gear up. They met in the armory, a room filled with weapons designed specifically for supernatural combat. Blessed silver, enchanted blades, ammunition that could drop a vampire in one shot. Ethan chose a set of silver-coated claws that fit over his natural ones, extending their reach and lethality. Ava took her hell-forged blades and what looked like a modified taser. Mara packed medical supplies and small vials of various magical compounds. Remember, Ava said as they loaded into a nondescript van. Quiet extraction. We're not there to fight a war. We're there to get Sophia and leave. Understood. The Drake Hotel was beautiful at 3 a.m., all Art Deco elegance and old money, mostly quiet except for a few late-night stragglers in the bar. They entered through the service entrance, Ava flashing fake employee IDs that got them past security without question. The service elevator was exactly where the schematics showed. They rode it in tense silence, Ethan's wolf prowling just beneath his skin, ready to explode into action. 78th floor. The doors opened onto a maintenance corridor. 2 guards, Ava whispered, pointing to security cameras. They'll have seen us. Be ready. 2 vampires rounded the corner, fangs already extended. But Ava was faster. Her hell-forged blades sang through the air, and both vampires dissolved into ash before they could raise an alarm. Clear. Move. They raced down the corridor to a door marked Penthouse Access. Mara pulled out a vial of something that glowed faintly purple, poured it on the lock. The metal hissed and melted. Inside, the penthouse was dark. Ethan's enhanced senses caught Sophia's scent immediately, lavender and honey and fear. She was close. 3rd door on the left, he whispered. They moved silently, avoiding the main areas where more guards likely waited. The bedroom door was locked but not warded. Ethan's claws made short work of it. Sophia was standing by the window, and when she saw him, her expression crumbled with relief. Ethan, she breathed. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. The mate bond sang with completion, with rightness, with the simple joy of having her close again. I've got you, he murmured. You're safe now. I need to tell you, Victor wants me to. Later. Right now, we're leaving. But as they turned to go, the bedroom door slammed shut. And standing in the hallway, visible through the suddenly transparent walls, was Victor himself. Did you really think it would be that easy? The vampire asked, his voice carrying through speakers hidden in the ceiling. That I wouldn't anticipate a rescue attempt? The windows exploded inward, and vampires poured through, at least a dozen, moving with coordinated precision. It's a trap, Ava snarled, her blades already moving. We need to. An explosion rocked the building. Then another. And another. What the hell? Nathan's voice came through Ethan's earpiece. Cole, the club wasn't a distraction. Victor had bombs planted. Multiple casualties, structures coming down. The line went dead. Victor's smile was triumphant through the transparent walls. I told you, Miss Chen. I have contingencies for contingencies. While your alpha was busy creating his little distraction, I was destroying his PAX holdings across the city. Businesses, safe houses, gathering places, all gone. And now, you're all trapped in my penthouse while I decide what to do with you. Ethan pulled Sophia behind him, his claws extended. They were surrounded, outnumbered, and cut off from backup. Through the pack bonds, he felt chaos, pack members scattered, injured, terrified. Cole was alive but barely, trapped under rubble at the club. The pack was in shambles. And it was all because Ethan had declared Sophia his mate, had dragged them into Victor's war. I'm sorry, Sophia whispered. I should have just recorded the testimony. Should have. Don't. Ethan's voice was firm despite the fear coursing through him. You did nothing wrong. This is Victor's doing. All of it. Touching, the vampire said. But irrelevant. You're going to die here, Wolf. All of you. And when you're gone, the the pack will have no choice but to surrender to my authority. Chicago will be mine, completely and absolutely. The vampires attacked. Ethan fought with everything he had: claws, teeth, wolf strength amplified by pack bonds and mate desperation. Beside him, Ava was a whirlwind of deadly precision, her blades cutting through vampires like they were paper. Mara threw vials that exploded into holy fire, buying them precious seconds. But there were too many. A vampire got past Ethan's guard, its claws raking across Sophia's arm. She screamed, and the sound drove Ethan into a frenzy. He tore apart the vampire that had touched her, then the three behind it, operating on pure instinct and rage. The mate bond was burning now, demanding he protect what was his at any cost. Ethan. Ava's voice. The window. We need to. She didn't finish because a vampire tackled her to the ground, fangs aimed at her throat. Time seemed to slow. Ethan saw Ava struggling, saw Mara bleeding from a dozen wounds, saw Sophia terrified and hurt and depending on him to save her. And he realized with crystal clarity that he couldn't win this fight. Not with strength or speed or even desperation. But maybe with sacrifice. Sophia, he said, his voice eerily calm. When I tell you to run, you run. Straight to the window, shift your weight forward, and let yourself fall. Ava and Mara will catch you. What? No. I'm not leaving you. You have to. He grabbed her face, forcing her to look at him. The mate bond goes both ways. If I die, you feel it. It'll hurt like hell, but you'll survive. But if you die, Sophia, I don't think I can. So please. When I say run, you run. Ethan. He kissed her. Hard and desperate and full of everything he wished he'd had time to say. Then he shoved her toward the window and turned to face Victor's forces. The grace that had been dormant inside him, werewolf magic, pack bonds, mate desperation, all of it converged into a single moment of crystallized power. Ethan didn't shift. He exploded. Wolf form erupted from him, but bigger than it should be, faster than natural, burning with golden light that came from somewhere primal and old. This wasn't just his wolf. This was every ancestor who'd ever run wild, every pack bond singing in harmony, every ounce of love he felt for the woman behind him. He was magnificent and terrifying and utterly unstoppable. The vampires barely had time to scream before he was among them, tearing through their ranks like they were nothing. Claws that could rend steel, jaws that crushed bone, speed that made him a blur of golden destruction. Victor's confident smile finally wavered. Impossible, the vampire breathed. No werewolf should be able to. Ethan's massive wolf form crashed through the transparent wall, landing in front of Victor with a snarl that shook the penthouse. Mine, his wolf said through the bond, the word resonating with absolute conviction. She's mine. And you threatened her. Run, he howled, the word somehow comprehensible despite his wolf form. Sophia ran. Ava caught her, and together they dove through the shattered window. Mara's magic cushioned their fall, creating a barrier of solidified air that let them descend safely to the street 78 floors below. Ethan stayed behind, holding off an army of vampires with nothing but fury and love and the absolute certainty that some things were worth dying for. But as Victor's forces closed in, as the golden light began to fade, Ethan realized something that changed everything. He wasn't dying alone. Through the pack bonds, he felt them coming, every able-bodied werewolf in Chicago, converging on the Drake Hotel. Cole, bleeding but alive. Nathan, half his pack fighting beside him. Dozens of wolves who'd felt their newest member in danger and couldn't stand by. Because that's what pack meant. Never alone. Never abandoned. Not ever. The pack arrived like a storm. Ethan heard them before he saw them, howls echoing through Chicago's downtown, harmonizing in a song of fury and brotherhood that made every vampire in the penthouse freeze. Then the walls exploded inward, and wolves poured through. Cole led the charge, his massive alpha form blazing with authority despite the blood matting his fur. Nathan was right behind him, followed by 20 more shifters in various states of transformation. They hit Victor's forces like a tsunami, teeth and claws tearing through vampires with precision born of centuries of pack combat training. But it was the figure that appeared in the shattered window that made Victor's confident expression finally crack. A woman. Ancient beyond measure, with silver hair that floated around her head like she was underwater and eyes that held the weight of millennia. She wore simple clothes, but power radiated from her in waves that made even the wolves whimper. "Enough," she said, and her voice carried the authority of absolute command. Every supernatural being in the room froze. Not by choice, their bodies simply refused to move, locked in place by will older than nations. "Who dares?" Victor began. "Silence, Victor Ashford. You have violated the covenant." The woman stepped into the penthouse, and Ethan felt recognition pulse through pack bonds. This was Margaret Chen. Witch. Elder. And, impossibly, Sophia's grandmother. "The covenant has no authority over." I said silence. Margaret's eyes flashed, and Victor's mouth snapped shut, his words cut off by magic he couldn't resist. The covenant was established 500 years ago by representatives of every major supernatural faction. Its purpose, to prevent exactly what you've been attempting. Open war. Mass exposure. The destruction of the balance between our world and the human one. She moved through the frozen tableau, examining the carnage. Senator Morrison was not just a human politician. He was covenant protected. A descendant of one of the original human signatories, chosen to maintain mortal interests in our agreements. Her gaze fixed on Victor with terrible intensity. "You knew this. And you murdered him anyway." Victor's eyes were the only thing that could move, and they blazed with fury and calculation. "As for you," Margaret turned to Ethan, and he felt her assessment like a physical touch, "a newly bonded wolf, barely a day into your mate connection, who somehow manifested pack-amplified transformation magic that shouldn't be possible for months of bonding." Her expression was unreadable. "My granddaughter has always had a talent for finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. Though I'll admit, even I didn't expect her to bond with someone quite like you." Through the mate bond, Ethan felt Sophia's shock and confusion. She was safe on the ground level with Ava and Mara, but her emotions were screaming questions he couldn't answer. "Release them," Margaret commanded, and suddenly everyone could move again. The wolves immediately formed a protective circle around Ethan. The vampires regrouped around Victor, who was staring at Margaret with barely contained rage. "You have no right to interfere," he said carefully. "The Covenant hasn't enforced its laws in 200 years. Because 200 years ago, the last supernatural faction to break Covenant law was exterminated to the last member." Margaret's voice was mild, but the threat was crystal clear. "Would you like to be the second, Victor? Because I assure you, the Covenant's enforcement arm is still very much active. We've simply been waiting. Watching. Allowing you all to play your little political games as long as you maintain the fundamental rules." "And what rules did I break?" Morrison was investigating supernatural activity that threatened exposure. Morrison was doing his job. The job his family has done for 500 years, mediating between human law and supernatural existence. You murdered him because he wouldn't be corrupted by your political maneuvering. Margaret's hand moved in a complex gesture, and suddenly the air shimmered with images. Security footage from the gala. Victor draining the senator. His vampires massacring guests. All of it crystal clear and irrefutable. "Evidence," she said simply. "Which I will present to the Covenant Council in 3 days. They will decide your punishment. But Victor, understand this, your days of operating freely in Chicago are over. You will cease all hostilities against the pack. You will dismantle your evidence framing werewolves for the massacre. And you will submit to Covenant authority, or I will ensure that every vampire in North America understands the cost of breaking our laws." Victor's jaw clenched. "And if I refuse? Then I kill you. Right here, right now. And every vampire who follows you." Margaret's eyes glowed with power that made the air crackle. "I am 473 years old, Victor. I was fighting supernatural wars when your maker was still human. Do not test me. The standoff lasted an eternity. Then, slowly, Victor lowered his head in the barest acknowledgement. The pack will be unmolested, he said through gritted teeth. The evidence will be re-evaluated. But Margaret, this isn't over. The Covenant may have power, but it's fractured. Divided. Half the supernatural factions don't even acknowledge its authority anymore. Then I'll remind them why they should. Margaret turned to Cole. Alpha Thorn. Your pack is safe. For now. But I suggest you strengthen your defenses and prepare for political maneuvering. Victor may be contained temporarily, but his allies will not take kindly to Covenant interference. Cole, still in wolf form, shifted back to human. Despite his injuries, he radiated authority as he inclined his head respectfully. Elder Chen. We're grateful for your intervention. Though I admit I'm surprised. Sophia never mentioned having a witch grandmother. Sophia doesn't know. Margaret's expression softened slightly. Her father, my son, wanted her to have a normal life. Away from supernatural politics and ancient obligations. I honored his wishes by staying distant, watching from afar. But when I felt her bond form, when I sensed Victor's intentions. She shook her head. Some things are more important than a father's wishes to protect his daughter from her heritage. Her heritage? Ethan asked, his voice rough from the transformation. Sophia is half-witch. Her father was human, yes, but I am not. And magical bloodlines have a way of manifesting in unexpected generations. Margaret's gaze fixed on him. Which is why your bond formed so quickly, so intensely. Sophia's latent magical nature recognized your wolf, and your wolf recognized her power. You're not just mates by chance, Ethan Reeves. You're compatible on a level most supernatural pairs never achieve. The revelation hit Ethan like a physical blow. Sophia was half-witch. She had power she didn't know about, heritage she'd never been told. And her grandmother was one of the most powerful beings in North America. Does she know? He asked. About being half-witch? She's about to. Margaret moved toward the shattered window. I'll explain everything to her. But first, I need to secure Victor's cooperation and ensure the Covenant Council receives my report. She glanced back at the vampire. You have 3 days, Victor. Use them to put your affairs in order. Because whether the Council orders your death or simply your exile, your time ruling Chicago is finished. Then she was gone, disappearing in a swirl of magic that left the scent of old books and thunderstorms. The vampires fled immediately after, Victor's cold gaze promising that this wasn't over despite Margaret's threats. And Ethan collapsed. The transformation had drained him completely. The golden light that had made him unstoppable faded, leaving behind exhaustion so profound he could barely stand. Cole caught him before he hit the ground. Easy, Reeves. You did good. Better than good. Sophia is safe downstairs with her grandmother. Who, apparently, is a terrifyingly powerful witch none of us knew about. Cole helped Ethan toward the exit. We need to get you medical attention and figure out what the hell just happened to you. The pack house was chaos when they returned. Injured wolves filled the medical bay, Mara and 2 other healers working frantically to stabilize them. The explosions Victor had triggered across the city had done significant damage, 3 pack members dead, a dozen more seriously injured, and countless businesses destroyed. But they were alive. The pack had survived. Ethan let himself be examined, healed, and eventually deposited in his room with orders to rest. But he couldn't. Through the mate bond, he felt Sophia, confused, overwhelmed, and learning truths about herself that changed everything. At dawn, there was a knock on his door. Sophia stood there, looking exhausted and shell-shocked. But alive. Whole. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. Ethan wanted to pull her into his arms, but he forced himself to stay still. To let her make the first move. She stepped into the room, closed the door behind her. My grandmother is a witch. Apparently, I'm a witch. Or half-witch. Or whatever the technical term is for someone who has magical blood but didn't know it existed until a few hours ago. Margaret explained everything. She tried. Mostly I just sat there trying to process the fact that magic is real. I have magic, and my entire life has been a carefully constructed lie to keep me away from the supernatural world. Sophia's voice cracked slightly. My father knew. He knew what my grandmother was, what I might become, and he kept it from me. Died keeping that secret. He was trying to protect you. I know. That's what makes it worse. She moved to the window, staring out at the sunrise. Margaret says my magic is just starting to manifest. That the trauma of the gala, the mate bond with you, all of it triggered something dormant in my blood. She wants to train me. Teach me how to control it before it controls me. What do you want? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. I want my father back. I want the last week to have been a bad dream. I want. She turned to face him, and her eyes were filled with tears. I want to understand why you risked everything for me. We barely know each other, Ethan. This bond, this connection, it's not enough to justify what you did. Staying behind to fight Victor, nearly dying while I escaped. Why would you do that? Because you're mine, Ethan said simply. The bond recognized it first, but it's more than that. You're brave and stubborn and you refuse to compromise your principles even when it meant painting a target on your back. You survived a massacre, got hunted through Chicago, faced down vampires, and never once gave up. How could I not protect someone like that? That's not love. That's admiration. Maybe. But admiration is a pretty good place to start. He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. Sophia, I know the timing is terrible. I know we're in the middle of a supernatural crisis and you just learned your entire reality was incomplete. But I meant what I said at the morgue. I want time with you. Real time, where we figure out if this bond is just magical compatibility or something deeper. And if it's just magical compatibility? Then we'll figure that out together. But I don't think it is. I think the bond recognized what we could be to each other, given the chance. Ethan took her hand gently. So let's take that chance. Let Margaret train you. Let me help Cole rebuild the pack. And in between crisis management and supernatural politics, let's go on actual dates. Learn each other's favorite foods. Watch terrible movies. All the normal relationship stuff, just with more magic and werewolves. Sophia laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Ethan had ever heard. Terrible movies? I have very questionable taste in cinema. Good. So do I. She squeezed his hand. Okay. We'll try this. Slowly. With actual conversations and dates and figuring out who we are before we commit to a magical bond that lasts forever. Works for me. They stood there, hands joined, watching the sunrise paint Chicago in shades of gold and pink. And through the mate bond, Ethan felt Sophia's emotion stabilizing, grief still present, but tempered by hope and determination and something that felt achingly like affection. Ethan, she said softly. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For saving me, for not pressuring me about the bond, for just being patient when you have every right to be possessive and demanding. You're worth the patience. She rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and brief, but full of promise. So are you. The Covenant Council meeting happened 3 days later, just as Margaret had promised. Victor was summoned to a location known only to Covenant members, a neutral ground that existed between dimensions, accessible only through magic. He went with Carl and his most trusted advisors, confident that he could manipulate the proceedings in his favor. He was wrong. The council consisted of 7 beings, each representing a major supernatural faction: witches, vampires, werewolves, fae, demons, angels, and humans. They reviewed Margaret's evidence in silence, then deliberated for exactly 3 minutes. The verdict was unanimous: Victor Ashford was guilty of breaking Covenant law. His punishment, exile from North America for 50 years, all holdings and assets forfeit, and magical binding to prevent him from creating new vampires or building another power base. Victor's rage was incandescent. But when he tried to resist, the angel representative, a being of terrible beauty named Serial, simply touched his forehead. Divine power flooded through Victor, rewriting his very essence at a fundamental level. When it was done, Victor was diminished. Still a vampire, still ancient and dangerous, but stripped of much of his accumulated power. "Go," the werewolf representative said, an alpha from Alaska named Roman. "And be grateful we didn't order your permanent destruction. 50 years is nothing to an immortal. Use it to learn humility." Carl watched his brother be escorted away by Covenant enforcers, then approached Margaret. "What happens to Victor's territory? His holdings?" "The Chicago Vampire Covenant will be restructured under new leadership. Someone who understands the value of the Covenant and respects its laws." Margaret's gaze was knowing. "I believe you've always been more pragmatic than your brother, Carl. More willing to work within established systems." Carl's expression was carefully neutral. "Are you offering me leadership?" "I'm suggesting that the Covenant would look favorably on a vampire leader who valued stability over expansion. Who could work cooperatively with the werewolf pack and other supernatural factions." Margaret smiled slightly. "Of course, such a leader would need to make amends for past transgressions. Lily Kane's murder, for instance. I was following orders. Orders you could have refused. But didn't." Margaret's voice hardened. "The Covenant understands the complexities of loyalty and hierarchy. But it also demands accountability. If you want Victor's position, you'll make restitution to the Kane family. Publicly acknowledge your role in Lily's death. And accept whatever judgment Ava Kane deems appropriate." Carl was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Acceptable. I'll face Ava's judgment." "Good. Then Chicago's Vampire Covenant is yours. Use it wisely." Back in Chicago, Sophia was discovering magic. Margaret's training was intense and exhausting. She spent hours learning to sense the power flowing through her bloodline, to shape it into simple spells, to understand the responsibility that came with wielding forces most humans never knew existed. "You have considerable potential," Margaret said during one particularly grueling session. "More than I expected. The combination of my witch blood and your father's human adaptability has created something unique." "What does that mean?" Sophia asked, sweat dripping down her face from the effort of maintaining a protective barrier. "It means you'll never be as powerful as a full-blood witch. But you'll be more versatile. Able to blend magic with human innovation in ways pure-blood witches can't conceive." Margaret smiled with something like pride. "Your father would have been fascinated by what you're becoming." The grief was still raw, but Sophia was learning to carry it. To honor her father by becoming someone he would have been proud of. In the evenings, when training was done, she spent time with Ethan. They went on dates, real dates, not just supernatural crisis management. Coffee shops and museums and walks along Lake Michigan. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's quirks and fears and dreams. And slowly, carefully, they fell in love. Not because of the mate bond, though it hummed with approval at every touch and kiss. But because they chose to. Because Sophia saw in Ethan a man who valued honor over expedience, who'd faced his past and chosen to be better. And because Ethan saw in Sophia a woman who refused to be broken by tragedy, who approached magic and supernatural politics with the same stubborn determination she'd shown surviving Victor's hunt. 3 weeks after the Covenant Council's verdict, Carl Ashford came to the pack house. Ava met him at the entrance, her expression carefully blank. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here." "I know." Carl's usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like genuine remorse. "I came to face judgment. For Lily. For everything." Ava studied him for a long moment, then gestured for him to follow. They went to the pack's memorial garden, a quiet space where names of fallen pack members were carved into stone. Lily Kane's name was there, along with the date of her death. "She was 23, Ava said quietly. just starting to understand her place in the pack. She had this laugh, ridiculous, snorting, absolutely embarrassing, and she never cared who heard it. She loved terrible romantic comedies and made the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever tasted. She was kind and funny and she saw good in everyone. Even you. I know. You killed her because Victor ordered it. Drained her dry and left her body in an alley like she was nothing. Yes. Why? Ava's voice broke. Why didn't you refuse? Why didn't you protect her? Carl was quiet for a long time. Because I was a coward. Because defying Victor meant death or exile, and I chose self-preservation over doing what was right. I've lived with that choice for 5 years, Ava. And it's destroyed me in ways you can't see. Good. You should be destroyed. Ava's claws were extended, and Ethan, watching from a respectful distance, could see how badly she wanted to use them. Give me one reason not to kill you right now. I can't. You'd be justified. Carl met her gaze steadily. But Ava, if you let me live, I swear I'll spend the rest of my existence making amends. Not just to you, but to everyone Victor hurt. I'm restructuring the Chicago Vampire Covenant. Implementing policies that prevent the kind of abuses Victor normalized. It won't bring Lily back. Won't erase what I did. But maybe it'll mean fewer sisters, fewer brothers, fewer people who die because creatures like me chose power over conscience. Ava's hand was shaking, claws inches from Carl's throat. Then, slowly, she lowered it. You get one chance, she said, her voice rough with unshed tears. One chance to prove you've changed. But Carl, if you ever hurt another innocent person, if you ever follow another order you know is wrong, I will end you. Personally. Painfully. Understood? Understood. They stood in the memorial garden, vampire and werewolf, connected by grief and the fragile hope that people could change. And watching from the pack house window, Sophia leaned against Ethan's shoulder. Do you think he means it? About making amends? I don't know, Ethan admitted. But I think Ava needs to believe people can change. After everything we've been through, we all need to believe that. Even Victor. Victor's exile is punishment, not redemption. Some people are too far gone. Ethan kissed the top of her head. But Carl? Maybe he's different. Maybe watching his brother fall made him realize he didn't want to end up the same way. I hope you're right. As Chicago's supernatural community began to heal, as the pack rebuilt and Sophia grew into her magic, a new balance was forming. Not perfect. Not peaceful. But possible. And in the center of it all, a werewolf and a half-witch were proving that the best bonds weren't the ones forced by magic, they were the ones built through choice, patience, and the courage to love despite impossible odds. The attack came 6 weeks after Victor's exile. Ethan woke to screaming and the smell of blood. He was on his feet instantly, the mate bond screaming danger as he raced towards Sophia's room in the pack house. Empty. Sophia. He reached through the bond, felt her terror and pain somewhere in the city. She was hurt. Under attack. And he hadn't been there to protect her. Cole was already in the hallway, half-shifted and radiating alpha fury. 3 locations hit simultaneously. Sophia was taken from Margaret's house during training. Ava's been injured defending the memorial garden. And someone firebombed our warehouse on the south side. Victor, Ethan snarled. Can't be. He's bound by covenant magic and exiled to Europe. We confirmed it. Cole's jaw clenched. But someone with resources, someone who knows our vulnerabilities. His phone rang. Cole answered, listened for 3 seconds, then his face went pale. It's Carl, he said quietly. He's at his penthouse. Says he has information about who took Sophia, but he'll only speak to Ethan. In person. Alone. It's a trap. Probably. But he's the only lead we have. Cole gripped Ethan's shoulder. I can't order you to go. Sophia's your mate, this is your choice. Ethan didn't hesitate. I'm going. 20 minutes later, he stood in Carl's penthouse, the same one Victor had occupied, now redecorated in minimalist style that was somehow more unsettling than his brother's opulence. Carl looked genuinely distressed, which was the first sign something was very wrong. Vampires didn't do distress. It's my fault, he said without preamble. I thought I'd dismantled all of Victor's contingency plans. Severed his connections, neutralized his allies. But I missed one. The most important one. Who? Ethan demanded. Victor's maker. A vampire named Cassandra who's been sleeping for the past century. She woke 2 weeks ago, learned what happened to her favorite progeny, and decided the Covenant needed to be taught a lesson. Carl's hands were shaking. She's ancient, Ethan. Older than Margaret, more powerful than any vampire in North America. And she has Sophia. The world tilted. Where? I don't know yet. But I know what she wants. Carl pulled out a tablet, showed Ethan a video. Sophia appeared on screen, bound to a chair in a dark room. Blood streaked her face from a cut above her eye, and her wrists were raw from struggling against silver restraints. Ethan Reeves, a woman's voice said from off-camera. Smooth, cultured, ancient. You've caused quite a disruption to my carefully laid plans. Victor was supposed to rule Chicago, expand vampire influence, and eventually challenge the Covenant from a position of strength. Instead, you bonded with a half-witch, rallied a pack, and got my protégé exiled. The camera panned to show the speaker. Cassandra was beautiful in the way glaciers were beautiful, cold, timeless, utterly inhuman despite her appearance. She wore a white dress that looked like it cost more than Ethan's life, and her eyes were the color of old blood. So here's what's going to happen, Cassandra continued. You're going to break your mate bond with Sophia. Publicly, painfully, in front of the entire Chicago supernatural community. You're going to accept full responsibility for destabilizing Victor's rule and submit to my judgment. And then you're going to convince the Covenant to overturn Victor's exile. And if I refuse? Ethan's voice came out as a growl. Then I kill her. Slowly. While broadcasting every moment to you through your bond. Cassandra smiled. But not before I kill Margaret Chen, collapse the pack house on everyone inside, and trigger a war between werewolves and vampires that will shatter the Covenant permanently. You have 24 hours to decide which future you prefer. The video ended. Ethan stood frozen, his mind racing through scenarios and finding no good options. Break the mate bond and lose Sophia forever, or refuse and watch her die along with everyone he cared about. There has to be another way, he said desperately. There is. Carl's voice was grim. But you're not going to like it. Margaret arrived at the pack house within the hour, her power crackling around her like a storm barely contained. Where is she? The witch demanded. Where's my granddaughter? Cole explained quickly, the attack, Cassandra's ultimatum, the impossible choice. Margaret's expression went from fury to calculation. Cassandra. I should have known. She's been dormant so long I'd forgotten she existed. The witch began pacing. She's too powerful for direct confrontation. Even with the full pack and my magic, we'd lose a straight fight. Then what do we do? Ava asked. She was bandaged from the earlier attack but refusing to rest. We cheat. Margaret pulled out an ancient book, its pages crackling with age. The mate bond is sacred, yes. But it's also magical. Which means it can be temporarily severed without permanent damage, if both parties consent and the ritual is performed correctly. Ethan's heart lurched. Temporarily? For 24 hours. The bond would appear broken to anyone examining it. Cassandra would believe you'd complied with her demands. But after 24 hours, it would snap back into place, stronger than before, actually, having been tested and reforged. Margaret's eyes were hard. It's dangerous. Severing even temporarily causes immense pain. And if something goes wrong, if the timing is off by even minutes, the bond could shatter permanently. I'll do it, Ethan said immediately. It requires Sophia's consent too. And she's captive, probably being watched. Cole shook his head. How do we even communicate the plan to her? Through the bond. Margaret looked at Ethan. You said it's been growing stronger, yes? That you can feel her emotions clearly? Yes. Then reach deeper. Push past emotions to actual thoughts. It's rare, especially in new bonds, but extreme circumstances can force evolution. The witch's expression was fierce. Find her through the bond. Tell her the plan. Get her consent. Then we perform the ritual and pray it works. Ethan closed his eyes, reaching through the mate bond with everything he had. Usually he felt only impressions, fear, pain, determination. But now he pushed deeper, searching for the thread of consciousness that was uniquely Sophia. There. Faint, barely perceptible, but present. Sophia, he thought desperately. Can you hear me? Silence. Then, impossibly, a response that wasn't words but feelings shaped into meaning. Ethan? How? The bond. We're connected deeper than either of us knew. Listen carefully, we have a plan. He explained quickly, feeling her shock and fear and desperate hope. When he finished, there was a long pause. It could break us permanently, she thought back. I know. But it's the only way to save you and stop Cassandra. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I can't survive the severing? Then I'll find you in whatever comes after and we'll figure it out together. Ethan felt tears streaming down his face even as his eyes remained closed. Sophia, I love you. Not because of the bond, not because of magic. Because you're brave and stubborn and you make terrible movie choices and you laugh at my worst jokes. Because in 6 weeks, you've become the most important person in my world. And I'm not losing you to some ancient vampire's revenge plot. He felt her love flowing back through the bond, warm and fierce and absolutely certain. I love you too. So let's do this. Let's beat Cassandra and prove that our bond is stronger than any magic she can throw at us. Together? Always together. Ethan opened his eyes to find the entire pack watching him with varying expressions of awe and concern. She consented, he said hoarsely. Let's do the ritual. The severing ritual happened at midnight in the pack house's ceremonial chamber. Ethan knelt in the center of a circle of salt and herbs, Margaret standing over him with the ancient book. Around them, the pack formed a protective barrier, their combined power feeding into the spell. This is going to hurt, Margaret warned. More than anything you've ever experienced. The bond has become fundamental to your existence, ripping it out, even temporarily, is like tearing out part of your soul. I understand. Do you? The witch's eyes were sad. Because once I start this, I can't stop. No matter how much you scream, no matter how much you beg. The ritual must be completed or you'll both die. Can you handle that? For Sophia? I can handle anything. Margaret began to chant in a language older than civilization. The air grew heavy with power, and Ethan felt the bond starting to fray at the edges. Then the pain hit. It was like being burned alive from the inside. Every nerve ending screamed as the mate bond was systematically shredded, piece by piece. Ethan could feel Sophia experiencing the same agony miles away, could feel her trying not to scream and failing. He wanted to stop it. Wanted to beg Margaret to end the ritual, to accept whatever consequences came rather than endure another second of this torture. But he'd promised. And werewolves kept their promises. So Ethan screamed. Screamed until his throat was raw, until pack members were crying in sympathy, until Cole had to physically restrain Ava from breaking the circle and stopping the ritual. And through it all, he held on to one thought: this is for Sophia. This saves her. This is worth it. Finally, mercifully, the bond snapped. The absence was worse than the pain. Where there had been warmth and connection and love, there was now nothing. A void where Sophia had been, an emptiness that made Ethan want to die just to escape feeling so fundamentally alone. It's done, Margaret said quietly. The bond appears completely severed to any magical examination. But Ethan, listen to me carefully. You have exactly 24 hours from this moment. If you don't complete the reforging ritual before then, the break becomes permanent. Understand? Ethan nodded numbly. He couldn't speak. Could barely think through the emptiness. Cole helped him to his feet. Carl's waiting. He'll escort you to Cassandra. Make her believe you've complied. And then? Then we rescue Sophia while Cassandra is distracted by her victory. The Alpha's grip tightened. But Ethan, if something goes wrong, if we can't extract her in time, then I lose her forever. Ethan's voice was hollow. I know. Let's just hope we're faster than Cassandra's paranoia. Cassandra's lair was in an abandoned church on Chicago's west side, because of course the ancient vampire had a flair for dramatic irony. Carl led Ethan inside, where Cassandra waited on what had once been the altar. Sophia was still bound to the chair beside her, looking exhausted and in pain but alive. Their eyes met, and Ethan felt nothing. The bond was truly gone. It was the most terrifying feeling of his life. Ethan Reeves, Cassandra purred. You actually did it. I'm impressed. Most wolves would rather die than sever a mate bond. I don't want war, Ethan said, the lie coming easily. I just want peace. For the pack, for Sophia, for everyone. How noble. Show me. Cassandra gestured imperiously. Let me examine the bond site. Prove it's truly broken. Ethan approached, knowing this was the dangerous part. If Cassandra was skilled enough, she might detect that the severing was temporary, might realize the whole thing was a ruse. The ancient vampire placed her hand over his heart, her power probing the empty space where the bond had been. Ethan forced himself to stay still, to show no reaction as she examined the magical wound. After what felt like an eternity, Cassandra smiled. Genuine. You really did sever it. Magnificent. She turned to Sophia. Do you see what he gave up for you? And it's meaningless, because you're still going to die. What? Ethan's blood turned to ice. You said if I broke the bond. I said I wouldn't kill her immediately. I never promised to let her live. Cassandra's laugh was cruel. Did you really think I'd let a half-witch who witnessed vampire crimes walk free? She's leverage, Wolf. And once Victor's exile is overturned, which you will now work tirelessly to achieve, she becomes a liability I can't afford. Rage flooded Ethan. The same rage that had manifested during the Drake Hotel fight, the transformation that had made him something more than Wolf. But without the mate bond, without that anchor, the rage had nothing to focus it. It just burned, wild and directionless. You lied, he snarled. I'm a vampire. Lying is what we do. Cassandra's hand moved in a blur, and suddenly she had Sophia by the throat, lifting her from the chair. Now, before I kill her, any last words? Something romantic, perhaps? This is your final chance to. The church exploded. Not with fire or force, but with wolves. The entire pack burst through windows and doors, led by Cole in his massive alpha form. Margaret appeared in a swirl of magic, her power crackling with fury. And Ava, beautiful, fierce Ava, tackled Cassandra with silver-coated claws extended. The ancient vampire dropped Sophia, who fell hard. Ethan was there instantly, gathering her into his arms despite the terrible emptiness where their bond should be. I've got you, he said. You're safe now. Sophia looked up at him with eyes full of love and terror. The bond, I can't feel you. Ethan, I can't. 24 hours. Margaret said we have 24 hours to reforge it. He glanced at Carl, who was fighting two of Cassandra's vampire guards. How long has it been? 23 hours and 47 minutes, the vampire called back. You have 13 minutes to get back to the pack house and complete the reforging ritual. 13 minutes. It had taken them 20 minutes to drive here. We won't make it, Sophia whispered. Ethan looked at Margaret, who was dueling Cassandra with magic that cracked reality itself. The witch met his gaze and understood immediately. "I can open a portal," she shouted over the sounds of combat. "But it'll take all my power. I won't be able to help fight Cassandra." "Do it!" Cole roared. "Save them. We'll handle the vampire." Margaret's hands moved in complex patterns, and a swirling vortex of light appeared in the center of the church. "Go! Now!" Ethan scooped Sophia into his arms and ran for the portal. Behind them, he heard Cassandra's shriek of rage, heard the pack engaging her forces, heard the sounds of a war that would reshape Chicago's supernatural balance. But all that mattered was getting Sophia through the portal before time ran out. They plunged into the vortex just as Cassandra broke free from Ava's attack and lunged toward them. The ancient vampire's claws scraped across Ethan's back, drawing blood, but then the portal snapped shut and they were tumbling into the pack house's ceremonial chamber. "How long?" Ethan gasped. A pack member checked their watch. 8 minutes. Not enough time for the full ritual. Margaret wasn't here to guide them. They had incomplete instructions and desperation. "Ethan," Sophia said, her voice surprisingly calm despite the tears streaming down her face. "If we don't make this work, if the bond breaks permanently." "It won't. But if it does, I need you to know, these 6 weeks with you have been the best of my life. Meeting you, falling in love with you, learning that magic and mates and impossible things are real, I wouldn't trade any of it." "Sophia. Let me finish." She cupped his face in her hands. "I choose you. Bond or no bond, magic or no magic, I choose you. And if we can't reforge this connection, we'll build a new one. The old-fashioned way. Because what we have? It's bigger than fate or magic or ancient prophecy. It's us. And that's enough." Ethan kissed her, pouring everything he felt into it. And in that moment, something shifted. The bond didn't snap back into place. It grew. Organically, naturally, built from choice and love and absolute commitment. When they pulled apart, Ethan could feel Sophia again, not through magical compulsion, but through something deeper. Something they'd created themselves. 5 minutes, someone said. "We don't need them," Sophia said, smiling through her tears. "We already reforged it." And it was true. The bond hummed between them, different than before, stronger, no longer just a magical artifact but something they'd chosen to build together. The pack member checking the time stared at them in wonder. That's not possible. Mate bonds can't be created through will alone." "Maybe not old ones," Ethan said, pulling Sophia close. "But new ones? Ones built on choice instead of destiny? Maybe those can be anything we want them to be." As the pack fought Cassandra in the ruined church, as Margaret pushed her magic to the breaking point, as Chicago's supernatural community balanced on the edge of war, 2 people stood in the center of it all and proved that the strongest bonds weren't the ones forced by fate. They were the ones built through sacrifice, trust, and the courage to choose love even when the universe offered no guarantees. The battle at the church was reaching its climax when Ethan and Sophia returned through another of Margaret's portals. They arrived to chaos. Cassandra had transformed into something monstrous, her vampire nature amplified beyond recognition, wings of shadow spreading from her back, eyes blazing with ancient fury. She'd already taken down 6 pack members, and even Cole in his alpha form was struggling to match her speed. But the pack wasn't giving up. They fought with coordinated precision, using tactics refined over centuries. Nathan and 3 other wolves kept Cassandra distracted from the front while Ava darted in from the sides with her blessed silver blades. And Margaret, magnificent, terrifying Margaret, was weaving spells that cracked the very air, binding Cassandra's movements, limiting her power. "You're back," Carl said, appearing beside Ethan. The vampire was bloodied but intact. "Did the bond?" "It worked. Different than before, but stronger." Ethan's eyes tracked Cassandra's movements. "How do we end her?" "We don't. She's too old, too powerful." Carl's expression was grim. "But Margaret has a plan." She needs 30 seconds of Cassandra being completely immobilized. That's it. Half a minute. And then? And then she uses Covenant authority to summon the enforcement arm. They'll drag Cassandra before the council for judgment. Carl glanced at him. But getting those 30 seconds means someone has to get close enough to restrain her. Close enough to be killed if the timing is wrong. Ethan understood immediately. I'll do it. Ethan, no, Sophia grabbed his arm. I'm the only one who can. He touched her face gently. My transformation at the Drake, it made me stronger, faster. And now, with our new bond, with your magic flowing through it. He could feel it, the power building between them. Not just mate bond anymore, but something hybrid, wolf and witch and human will all combined. Trust me. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. Then take this. She pressed her hand over his heart, and warmth flooded through him. My magic. My strength. Everything I have. The power was incredible. Ethan felt his wolf surge forward, felt Sophia's witch heritage intertwining with it, felt the bond amplifying everything until he was glowing with golden green light. He shifted. But this wasn't the massive wolf form from the Drake Hotel. This was something new. Something that had never existed before, a hybrid form that was part wolf, part human, wrapped in magic that pulsed with combined power. Cassandra's head snapped toward him, her ancient eyes widening. Impossible. No werewolf should be able to. Ethan attacked. He was faster than before, stronger, more controlled. His claws, silver-coated and now burning with Sophia's magic, tore through Cassandra's shadow wings. The vampire shrieked and spun to retaliate, but Ethan was already moving, using pack bonds to coordinate perfectly with the other wolves. Nathan struck from the left. Ava from the right. Cole from above. And Ethan drove forward, his hybrid strength letting him match Cassandra's speed. Now! Margaret shouted. Hold her now. Ethan's arms wrapped around Cassandra from behind, locking her in place with supernatural strength. She thrashed, her power trying to tear him apart, but he held on. Cole's jaws clamped onto her left arm. Nathan took the right. Ava's blade pressed against her throat. You can't hold me, Cassandra snarled. I am ancient. I have devoured civilizations. Maybe, Ethan growled in her ear. But you've never faced a pack this united. Never faced a witch with Margaret's power. Never faced a wolf bonded to magic itself. Margaret's hands moved in patterns too complex to follow, her voice speaking words that predated language. The air around them began to shimmer, and suddenly symbols appeared, glowing marks of covenant authority that wrapped around Cassandra like chains. By the power vested in me as a covenant elder, Margaret declared, I summon the enforcement arm to render judgment on Cassandra Delacroix for violations of covenant law, unauthorized aggression against protected parties, attempted murder of a covenant mediator's descendant, and conspiracy to shatter the supernatural peace. Reality tore open. 3 figures stepped through, beings of such concentrated power that even looking at them made Ethan's eyes water. They wore no identifying marks, no symbols of allegiance, but their authority was absolute. We have examined the evidence, one said, its voice resonating on frequencies that hurt to hear. Cassandra Delacroix, you are found guilty. The sentence is binding and imprisonment for 500 years, to be served in the Covenant's deepest vault. No! Cassandra screamed, struggling against the combined hold. You can't. I am too powerful, too important. You are nothing. The enforcer touched Cassandra's forehead, and she went limp. The age of ancient vampires operating without accountability is over. The Covenant has been patient. Forgiving. But no more. They dragged Cassandra through the tear in reality, her unconscious form disappearing into whatever prison dimension the Covenant maintained. The portal sealed behind them, leaving only silence and the scent of ozone. Ethan released his hybrid form, collapsing to his knees. Sophia was there instantly, supporting him, her magic still flowing through their bond to help him recover. You did it, she whispered. You crazy, reckless wolf. You actually did it. We did it, he corrected. Your magic made the difference. Margaret approached, looking exhausted but satisfied. That hybrid form shouldn't be possible. The magical theory alone, she shook her head. But I suppose when a werewolf mates with a half-witch, when they build a bond through choice rather than fate, impossible becomes just another Tuesday. Cole shifted back to human form, bloodied and limping but alive. Casualties? 6 wounded, none critical. We got lucky. Nathan appeared, supporting Ava who was nursing a broken arm. Cassandra was holding back, probably to savor her victory. If she'd gone all out from the start. But she didn't, Cole interrupted. And now she's locked away for 5 centuries. That's a win. What about Victor? Ethan asked. His exile stands, Margaret said firmly. Cassandra's actions don't absolve him of his crimes. If anything, this proves the Ashford line has a fundamental problem with respecting authority. Her gaze shifted to Carl. Which brings us to you. The vampire straightened, clearly exhausted from the fight. Elder Chen. You fought against your maker. Helped us restrain her. Provided intelligence that made this victory possible. Margaret's expression was unreadable. The Covenant will take that into account when evaluating your leadership of Chicago's vampire faction. But Carl, understand this, you're on probation. One misstep, one abuse of power, one innocent death, and you'll join Cassandra in that vault. Clear. Crystal. Good. Margaret turned to the pack. You all fought well today. Showed the Covenant that werewolves aren't the savage beasts Victor tried to paint you as. That cooperation between species is possible. She paused. The supernatural world is changing. The old ways, hiding in shadows, operating in isolation, they're ending. What comes next will require alliances, trust, and beings willing to bridge the gaps between species. Her gaze lingered on Ethan and Sophia. Which is why I'm proposing something radical. A council. Not just Covenant elders, but representatives from each major faction working together to manage Chicago's supernatural community. Vampires, werewolves, witches, and humans all with equal voice. Humans? Cole's eyebrows rose. They don't know we exist. Some do. Senator Morrison did. My son did. And eventually, more will need to know, carefully, selectively, but inevitably. Margaret's voice was firm. We can't hide forever. Better to control the revelation, to build relationships with human allies before fear turns to persecution. And who would represent these factions? Ava asked. I would represent witches. Carl, despite his past, has proven himself capable of leading vampires toward cooperation rather than conflict. Cole, you're the obvious choice for werewolves. Margaret smiled slightly. And for humans, I'm recommending Sophia. What? Sophia's voice was a squeak. I'm barely a witch, I just learned magic exists 2 months ago, You're perfect, Margaret interrupted. You understand both worlds. You have personal investment in keeping peace, and more importantly, you have the courage to stand up to power when necessary. You prove that by refusing Victor's demands, by surviving Cassandra's captivity, by choosing to reforge your bond through will alone. Sophia looked at Ethan, who squeezed her hand supportively. It's your choice, he said quietly. Whatever you decide, I support you. It's terrifying, she admitted. But if it means preventing what happened to my father from happening to anyone else. She took a deep breath. Okay. I'll do it. On one condition. Which is? Ethan represents werewolves with me. As partners. Sophia's eyes held Margaret steadily. We're bonded. We're strongest together. And if this council is supposed to model cooperation, what better symbol than a werewolf and half-witch working as a team? Cole made a considering noise. It would free me up to focus on pack management. And Ethan has proven himself capable under pressure. He looked at Ethan. You willing to take this on? It's a lot of responsibility. Political maneuvering, negotiations, balancing competing interests. Ethan thought about Lucas, dead because he'd questioned orders. Thought about 5 years alone, refusing to be part of something bigger. Thought about everything that had changed since he'd caught Sophia Chen in that alley. Yes, he said. I'm willing. Then it's settled. Margaret's smile was genuine now. Chicago's first supernatural council. We'll convene monthly, handle disputes, manage exposure risks, and try not to kill each other in the process. Sounds like a typical Tuesday, Carl said dryly, earning surprised laughs from the pack. As they began cleaning up the church, tending to wounded, and processing what had just happened, Ethan pulled Sophia aside. You know this means we're going to be stuck in endless meetings, right? He said. Bureaucracy and politics and vampires making passive-aggressive comments. Sounds awful, Sophia agreed. We should probably practice our patience. How? She kissed him, deep and thorough and full of promise. By taking some time for ourselves. No pack business, no council meetings, no ancient vampires trying to kill us. Just you and me, figuring out what normal looks like when you're a werewolf dating a half-witch. Dating? I thought we were bonded. We are. But I still want the dating part. The romance, the getting to know you, all of it. Her smile was mischievous. Besides, you promised me terrible movies, remember? So I did. They stood in the ruins of the church, surrounded by pack and allies, and felt the new bond humming between them, not fate, but choice. Not magic alone, but love built through trial and trust. Ethan? Sophia said softly. Yeah. Thank you. For choosing me. For fighting for us. For being exactly the kind of stubborn, reckless wolf I needed. Thank you for not running when any sane person would have. For building a bond with me that's stronger than anything fate could have created. For being brave enough to love a wolf with a complicated past and an uncertain future. Hey, I'm a half-witch dating a werewolf while serving on a supernatural council. Uncertain futures are kind of my thing now. She leaned her head on his shoulder. But at least we'll face them together. And as Chicago's supernatural community began rebuilding, as new alliances formed and old wounds started healing, two people stood at the center of it all and proved that the best endings weren't the ones written by destiny. They were the ones created through choice, courage, and the unwavering belief that love, real love, was worth fighting for. 3 months later. The first official Chicago Supernatural Council meeting took place in a renovated building on neutral ground, not pack house, not vampire territory, not Margaret's domain. Just a conference room with a large table, coffee that was surprisingly decent, and representatives from 4 factions trying not to kill each other. The zoning dispute on the north side needs resolution, Carl said, consulting his tablet. Vampire business owners are complaining that werewolf-run establishments are getting preferential treatment from the city. Because we don't mind control city officials, Ava shot back. She'd taken Cole's place at the table today, giving the Alpha time to handle internal pack business. Maybe if vampires tried operating legitimately. We are operating legitimately. We just happen to have better lawyers. Bought with illegally accumulated wealth from the 1800s. Can we table the vampire-werewolf wealth disparity discussion for the 5th time? Sophia interrupted, her voice patient but firm. We have actual issues to address. Like the rogue shifter spotted near Millennium Park last week. Ethan pulled up the incident report. Lone wolf, no pack affiliation, causing property damage but no human casualties. Cole wants to bring them in, offer pack membership or supervised relocation. And if they refuse? Margaret asked. Then we handle it according to covenant law. Capture, evaluate, and if they're a genuine threat to exposure, detain until they can be rehabilitated. Ethan met each representative's gaze. We agreed on these protocols. No faction acts unilaterally. Speaking of protocols, Carl said, we need to discuss Senator Morrison's replacement. The new senator, Patricia Hayes, is asking questions about the gala explosion. Good questions. She's not accepting the gas leak story. Sophia's expression tightened at the mention of her father's death, but her voice remained steady. Then we bring her in. Carefully. Let her know the truth, offer evidence, and give her the same choice my father had: work with us to maintain the balance, or risk exposure that could trigger mass panic. You think she'll accept? Ava asked. I think humans aren't as fragile as we assume. My father managed the truth. So can Senator Hayes. Sophia glanced at Ethan, who nodded supportively. I'll make contact this week. Set up a meeting. The council continued for another hour, working through disputes, exposure risks, and the mundane business of managing a supernatural community existing alongside an oblivious human population. It was tedious, occasionally frustrating, but it was working. When the meeting finally adjourned, Ethan and Sophia walked out together into the Chicago evening. Coffee, he suggested. Please. Something to wash away the taste of vampire-werewolf political bickering. She took his hand as they headed toward their favorite cafe, a little place in Wicker Park that knew them as regulars but had no idea what they really were. They ordered black coffee for him, absurdly complicated latte for her, and settled into a corner booth. You handled Carl well today, Ethan said. When he started pushing about the vampire business licenses. I'm learning. Margaret's been teaching me negotiation tactics. Sophia smiled. Turns out 400 years of witch politics gives you excellent training for dealing with stubborn vampires. How is the magic training going? Good. Great, actually. I can do basic defensive spells now, some healing magic, and Margaret thinks I might have a talent for dimensional work. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. Who knew finding out your half-witch would come with such cool benefits? Any regrets? About getting dragged into this world? Sophia was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing patterns on her coffee cup. I regret my father's death. I regret not knowing about my heritage sooner. But getting pulled into the supernatural world? Meeting you? Learning magic is real and I can wield it? She looked up at him. No regrets. This is where I'm supposed to be. Even with all the danger. The politics? The ancient vampires trying to kill you? Especially because of those things. Her smile was fierce. I'm making a difference, Ethan. Helping build something that could actually change how supernatural beings interact with each other and with humans. My father spent his life fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. Now I'm doing the same thing, just with more magic and werewolves. Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. I love you. Have I mentioned that today? Only twice. You're slacking. But her expression softened. I love you too. Even when you track mud through my apartment after pack runs. That was 1 time. 3 times. I counted. They sat in comfortable silence, just being together in the quiet moments between supernatural crises. These were Ethan's favorite times, when they weren't representatives or council members or warriors, just 2 people who'd found each other against impossible odds. So, Sophia said eventually, Margaret mentioned something interesting yesterday. Oh? She said mate bonds like ours, the ones built through choice rather than pure instinct, are incredibly rare. Maybe 1 in 10,000. Her eyes held his. And they tend to be permanent. Like, even more permanent than traditional bonds. Because we chose each other, consciously and repeatedly, the magic reflects that commitment. Meaning? Meaning if you ever want to get rid of me, you're out of luck. You're stuck with a half-witch who has terrible taste in movies and talks during breakfast. Ethan pretended to consider. I'm stuck forever with a beautiful, brilliant woman who challenges me, supports me, and somehow thinks my worst jokes are funny. However will I cope? You're ridiculous. You love it. I really do. She squeezed his hand. Ethan, I know we haven't talked about the future much. We've been so focused on surviving the present. But I've been thinking. His phone buzzed. Then hers. Then both simultaneously. They exchanged glances and checked the messages. Pack emergency alert from Cole. Margaret's text saying, council meeting. Now. Carl's message, we have a situation. So much for quiet evening, Sophia sighed. Comes with the territory. Ethan stood, offering his hand. Ready? Always. The emergency council meeting revealed a new crisis. A group of young shifters had accidentally exposed themselves to humans during a fight in Grant Park. Cell phone footage was already circulating online, showing what looked like people transforming into wolves. How bad? Ethan asked, studying the grainy video on Margaret's tablet. Containable, if we move fast. The witch was already typing furiously. I have contacts in social media companies who can flag this as CGI, manipulate algorithms to reduce visibility. But we need a cover story for the witnesses. Gas leak? Carl suggested. We just used that for the gala, Ava pointed out. People will start noticing a pattern. Flash mob, Sophia said suddenly. Performance art piece about environmental destruction, actors in very realistic costumes. We leak professional photos of the rehearsal, showing the wolf suits, plant reviews about how impressive the practical effects were, and let people's desire to explain the impossible do the rest. Margaret smiled. That might actually work. They spent the next 6 hours executing the plan. Margaret's contacts scrubbed the worst footage. Carl's vampire resources planted the cover story through influencers and local news. The pack rounded up the young shifters, 3 teenagers who'd been in their first real fight and panicked. By dawn, the crisis was contained. The internet was already debating CGI versus practical effects, completely missing the fact that they'd witnessed actual werewolves. Good work, everyone, Cole said as the emergency meeting wound down. This is what cooperation looks like. A year ago, this would have triggered faction warfare. Now we handle it in hours with minimal damage. Progress, Margaret agreed. Though we should probably have a conversation about better training for young shifters. If this happens again. It won't, Cole interrupted, his voice hard. I'm implementing mandatory control classes for all shifters under 25. This was my failure as alpha. It won't happen again. The meeting adjourned, and Ethan walked Sophia to her car as the sun rose over Chicago. Rain check on that quiet evening? He asked. Definitely. She kissed him, soft and sweet despite their exhaustion. Though this is our life now. Supernatural crisis management interspersed with stolen moments. Could be worse. Could be better. True. But Sophia, I wouldn't change any of it. Not the danger, not the politics, not even the 3 a.m. emergency meetings. Ethan pulled her close. Because all of it means I get to be with you. And that's worth every crisis, every threat, every impossible situation we have to navigate. You're going to make me cry before breakfast. Is that a bad thing? No. She buried her face in his chest. It's perfect. You're perfect. This whole ridiculous, dangerous, magical life we're building is perfect. 6 months later. Ethan stood in Margaret's garden, surrounded by pack members, vampires, witches, and a handful of trusted humans who now knew the truth about the supernatural world. Sophia appeared at the garden entrance, and his breath caught. She wore a simple white dress, her dark hair adorned with flowers that Margaret had enchanted to glow softly. She looked radiant, nervous, and absolutely beautiful. This wasn't a traditional wedding. Those didn't really apply when one party was a werewolf and the other was a half-witch. Instead, it was a bonding ceremony, witnessed by both communities, celebrating a connection that had been built through choice and tested by fire. Margaret officiated, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. We gather today to witness the formal bonding of Ethan Reeves and Sophia Chen. Their connection was forged in crisis, tested by ancient powers, and rebuilt through will alone. They represent what the supernatural community could become, united, cooperative, stronger together than apart. Cole stepped forward as Ethan's representative. The pack accepts Sophia Chen as mate to our brother Ethan. We vow to protect her, honor her, and welcome her as one of our own. Carl, surprisingly, stepped forward for Sophia. The Vampire Covenant acknowledges this bond and pledges to respect it. What these two have built serves as an example that old hatreds can evolve into new alliances. Margaret smiled. Then by the authority vested in me by the Covenant, by the power of the magic that flows through both of you, and by the choice you've made repeatedly to build something real, I declare you bonded. May your connection be a light in the darkness, a bridge between worlds, and a testament to the power of choosing love over fear. The bond between them flared, not the desperate, painful thing from their first meeting, but something warm and steady and absolutely certain. It wrapped around them like a promise, like protection, like home. Ethan kissed Sophia while their friends cheered, and through the bond he felt her joy, her love, her absolute certainty that they were exactly where they were supposed to be. 1 year later, the Chicago Supernatural Council had evolved into something remarkable. They'd successfully integrated 5 humans into supernatural knowledge, creating a small but growing group of mortals who helped mediate between worlds. Senator Hayes had become one of their strongest advocates, passing legislation that unknowingly protected supernatural beings while appearing to target organized crime. The pack had grown too. Cole reported that they'd taken in 12 lone wolves over the past year, offering them community and structure. Ava had been promoted to head enforcer, and she wore the position with fierce pride. Carl's Vampire Covenant was actually working with the pack on joint ventures, businesses that employed both species, proving that cooperation was profitable as well as peaceful. And Margaret had started training 3 other young half-bloods in magic, building a small coven of witches who understood both supernatural and human worlds. Ethan and Sophia had moved into a house on the north side, close enough to the pack house for emergencies, far enough for privacy. It was modest, comfortable, and absolutely theirs. They hosted the monthly council meetings there now, with homemade food and an atmosphere that encouraged actual dialogue rather than political posturing. I have news, Sophia announced at one such meeting, her eyes sparkling with excitement and nervousness. Everyone looked at her expectantly. She glanced at Ethan, who nodded encouragingly, then took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. The room erupted. Cole was grinning. Ava was already planning a baby shower. Margaret looked smug, like she'd known all along. Even Carl offered genuine congratulations. This is unprecedented, Margaret said once the excitement died down. A child born from a werewolf witch bond built on choice rather than fate. The magical potential alone is something we'll figure out together, Sophia interrupted gently. No pressure on this kid to be anything other than loved and supported. Agreed, Ethan said firmly, his hand finding Sophia's. Our child gets to choose their own path. Just like we did. Margaret smiled. As it should be. 5 years later. Ethan watched his daughter, Elena, named for Sophia's mother, play in the garden with 3 other children. 2 were pack pups, learning control. 1 was a young vampire, learning restraint. And Elena, at 4 years old, was teaching them all a game she'd invented that involved magic, werewolf speed, and absolutely no regard for traditional faction boundaries. She's going to be trouble, Sophia said, appearing beside him with 2 glasses of lemonade. She gets it from her mother. Excuse me, which one of us declared a complete stranger his mate and started a war with vampires? Fair point. Ethan accepted the lemonade, watching Elena accidentally turn one of the pack pups' fur bright pink with uncontrolled magic. Should we intervene? Margaret says she needs to learn consequences. The pup will be pink for a few days, Elena will feel terrible, and she'll be more careful next time. And if she's not careful next time? Then we'll handle it. Together. Like we handle everything. Sophia leaned against him. How's the council expansion going? Good. We're adding representatives from the Fae community next month. They've been isolated for so long, but recent exposure risks have them reconsidering. Ethan sipped his lemonade. Carl thinks we should reach out to demon factions too, eventually. One supernatural species at a time. I'm still getting used to vampires being helpful. You and me both. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their daughter play with children from different species, different backgrounds, all learning that cooperation was more fun than conflict. Ethan? Sophia said softly. Yeah. 5 years ago, I was running through an alley, terrified and alone, convinced I was about to die. And then a stubborn werewolf decided I was worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth building something impossible with. Her eyes met his. Thank you. For choosing me. For building this life with me. For proving that the best stories aren't the ones written by fate, they're the ones we write ourselves. Thank you for giving me a reason to stop running. For showing me that pack, family, and love weren't things to fear but things to fight for. Ethan kissed the top of her head. I love you. Our ridiculous daughter who just turned another pup purple. This chaotic life we've built. All of it. Even the 3 a.m. emergency council meetings. Especially those. They mean we're making a difference. Elena's laughter rang through the garden as she successfully combined her magic with one of the pup's transformations, creating something that looked like a tiny glowing wolf. It was messy, uncontrolled, and absolutely beautiful. Just like their lives. Just like the community they'd helped build. Just like the love that had started in an alley, been tested by ancient powers, and emerged stronger than anything fate alone could have created. And as Chicago's supernatural community continued to grow and evolve, as old hatreds transformed into new alliances, as impossible became just another word for, we'll figure it out together, two people stood at the center of it all and proved something fundamental. That the strongest bonds weren't the ones forced by destiny. That the best families were the ones built through choice. That love, real, tested, chosen love, could overcome anything the universe threw at it. And that sometimes, the greatest adventures began with a terrified woman stumbling into an alley and a werewolf deciding she was worth fighting the entire world to protect. Not because fate demanded it. But because love, real love, was always worth the fight. Thank you so much for reading The Shifter's Dilemma. If this story made you feel anything, joy, tears, excitement, drop a comment below telling me your favorite moment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button so you never miss another emotional, addictive supernatural romance. This community is incredible, and I love creating these stories for you. Until next time, stay magical, stay wild, and remember, the best love stories are the ones we choose to write ourselves.